I feel like
A major injury in the National Football League, just part of a wild Sunday in the NFL. Plus, the CFL, things getting a little bit tight at the top of the West Division. The Blue Jays are awesome once again, and we get ready for another busy weekend in wrestling. We have a lot to get to, so let's get to it. Couch Potato Diary Live, presented by Sea of Dead, starts right now. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Like I said, a ton to get to on the sports calendar after a wild weekend in the NFL, CFL, and Major League Baseball. Didn't mention in the open, NHL season preview continues today with the hot seat as we look at players and coaches who are feeling the heat for the upcoming season. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag. These sold out right now, but we got an option on the website now that if you see something you like and you want it, you can let us know, and we will let you know when they come back in stock. But we got the Jerome McGinley Kid Sport shirts going right now. Was at the Kid Sport Sneakers and Dreamers Gala at Winsport over the weekend. So cool to be a part of that, and a lot of people really excited about those shirts. So head over seaofdead403.ca. All the proceeds, all the profits going towards Kid Sport, and just a phenomenal event that they had last night, and a charity that I'm so happy to be a small part of helping out with the fantastic mission that they have, and very motivated to be a part of that after an incredible gala on the weekend. Saw Tom Cochran play. Had no idea I was going to do that, but Kid Sport going all out for that one. Also, we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Just quickly here before I lose everybody with rambling on. Apologies for not getting the regular stuff out that I wanted to for Fight Week for boxing and with Worlds Collide as well. My travel schedule, that one was on me. My travel schedule was significantly different than I thought it was, and I wasn't able to get that all out to you guys, and then the weekend got away. So haven't been able to watch the boxing yet. I heard it was quite the thing, but going to watch that here in the next 24 hours and get a recap to you guys as soon as possible. Same thing with Worlds Collide. I wanted to watch the football more than all of that, and thought we could have a lot more to talk about with those things. So we'll be getting to the regular stuff with the boxing and the wrestling from the weekend, just maybe not today. We have Connor D in the chat saying, where was that event? It was at Winsport, at the Mark and McPhail Center. They had the ring. It was funny that they had it all dressed up and everything, and you walk by the benches and you can still smell some remnants of what happened on the benches. But still, that place dresses up nice. It was a wonderful gala that they put on, and I think they raised like over $500,000 for Kid Sport. So I mean, look, the imposter syndrome was off the hook in that, and not from, like, everyone made me feel extremely welcome. You know, got to chat with Rob Kerr and Eric Francis and all those guys. But just for me, a tuxedo gala, even with sneakers on, isn't necessarily your boy's comfort zone. But it was really cool to see it all dressed up. And then, Tom Cochran putting on a show at the end. George Canyon also doing some stuff in a really interesting panel that Eric Francis hosted. So a lot of fun things happening with Kid Sport and with Sea of Dead as well. So again, seaofdead403.ca with get a Jerome McGinley shirt to get ready for the start of the NHL season. So let's now get into the sports talky talk of the day, as the National Football League is basically done with its second week, and it has another major injury to really kind of upset the apple cart. It's an injury that maybe we saw coming, as glib as that may be to say. So let's talk about Joe Burrow's injury as we start our look at week 2 in the NFL. So week 2 in the NFL, basically in the books. We have 2 games on Monday Night Football with the Texans and the Buccaneers, and the Chargers and the Raiders putting a bow on it. But everybody else has played. And I think the big story of the weekend is, there's a few of them. This was a wild weekend in the NFL, but I think the big story is Joe Burrow and his toe injury that is going to keep him now sidelined for 3 months. And it is, you never want to say, I told you so when it comes to injuries or anything of the sort. But we did caution that this was going to be a concern for the Cincinnati Bengals this season. And one of the things we had talked about in the season preview with everything leading up to this was, can this team bank on a historically good offense 2 seasons in a row? And unless Jake Browning is this generation's Kurt Warner, it would appear that that answer is no. And this is just, once again, mismanagement by the Cincinnati Bengals. And we can talk about where, like, Joe Burrow's role in this, where he wanted his guys back in. And I think obviously the one that is going to be debated is T. Higgins, because this is now twice where this organization has picked a star receiver over solidifying an offensive line. The Chase one, win-win on both sides, right? Penei Sewell is probably the best offensive lineman, or one of the best offensive linemen in the National Football League, while Jamar Chase is at worst the second best receiver in the NFL. So you win some, you lose some on that one. But with T. Higgins, they decided to lock him up instead of improving the offensive line. Now, I will say, that is the easy kind of course to take with that. And honestly, it might be the easy one because it might also be the correct one. But I would also like to say that teams get around salary cap stuff all the time in the NFL. And I'm not talking in a Kawhi Leonard sense of getting around the salary cap. I am talking about how I am sure that the Bengals aren't 53 for 53 on great value contracts on their roster. You can make the Higgins signing, you can make the Hendrickson signing, and the Chase signing, and still probably find room to address what was going on the offensive line. And instead, they are going into the season relying on their franchise quarterback being able to bail them out. And honestly, the fact that the injury that is going to significantly impact his season for the third time in 6 seasons, they're all basically almost lucky that it's just a toe injury and not something more severe, given the punishment that this guy takes on a week in, week out basis. So I feel like this was entirely preventable and entirely predictable from the Bengals. And it's what we talked about. And look, we're talking about a 2-0 football team. But do they feel like a 2-0 football team to you? Because they don't to me. At no point has this felt like, oh yeah, these guys got it. At no point has it felt like that. It has felt like they are facing two teams that aren't going to be real playoff contenders in the NFL, and they were able to get by. And I get doing the NFL math thing can be tricky, and we're going to have a tough time with that today. But you look at what the Bengals did against the Browns in week number 1, and you look at what the Ravens did against the Browns in week number 2, and it ain't close. And you look at what they should be doing against this Jacksonville team, and that can be a bit of a concern as well. And this is, again, the fail to address the offensive line. Now Joe Burrow is hurt. Also, I still don't think they did enough to shore up that defense. Yes, fantastic. You drafted Shamar Stewart first overall. That doesn't mean, okay, check, get to just done and dusted. Great, fantastic. That's not the case at all. This team focused on one area of their club to try to improve, didn't improve that enough, and neglected what was probably an equally big problem in Cincinnati, and now they are paying for it as Joe Burrow is going to be missing 3 months of football, according to Adam Schefter on social media today. So the Bengals are obviously in a very difficult spot right now because there's no catching the Ravens without Joe Burrow. And it's great that Browning was able to do what he did to be able to come up with a victory against Jacksonville. I would suggest they lose to most teams in that game. And now that teams have an opportunity to scout and get ready for Browning, it's going to be a problem for the Bengals here. So it is a huge setback for Cincinnati and hopefully a wake-up call that something and multiple somethings have to be done on the offensive line to get this team where they need to get to. Just the other part of this, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is looking better, for sure. It is still not at an elite caliber, certainly not. It is probably better than it looked a season ago. Brown with a really tough drop in the end zone. Thomas, maybe not as involved as people would like over the last couple of weeks, but the offense is looking better than it had a season ago. So at least some signs of optimism for Jacksonville. But given Burrow's injury at that point in the game, this is a football game that Jacksonville should win if they were going to take that step next into playoff contender for the upcoming season. So a tough one for Jacksonville, but a really, really weird to say, but a very tough win for the Cincinnati Bengals in week number 2. Eagles at 2-0. We're coming off of a win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Deeds with a really good question here before we get to that one. Besides the Bengals, what 2-0 team is likely to miss the playoffs? Deeds, that sounds like a segment. So we're going to do the NFL recap thing here. Going to go through, because, oh boy, the thoughts I have ready. But after that, we'll hit the thing and we'll get to that because that's a really, really good question. And we'll run through that one. I'm going to tell you now, the Eagles will not be included in that as they are 2-0 coming off of a win over the Kansas City Chiefs. And this one, minus spitting and minus some issues with the weather and whatnot, this one kind of followed a similar script to Dallas, where they're able to run the ball. The defense comes up with big stops when they need to, and they're able to escape with a victory. There are going to be a lot of shows today talking about Jalen Hurts and under 100 yards passing. What Chris Jones, was saying to him at in victory formation, where he was saying under 100 yards passing. He's like, hey, got the W. And I think everyone just needs to deep cleansing breath on the Jalen Hurts discussion. He's excellent. Is he going to win football games throwing for 400 yards? Not many. I would say he hasn't really had to yet. You know, like they were down at points in this game, but not in a way where they needed to throw the ball all over the yard or deviate from the game plan in any meaningful way. And same with the Dallas Cowboys. That defense wasn't stopping a thing that they were doing, so why did they need to go to another level? There were some throws that Hurts missed that you would like him to not miss. That would be fantastic again. But overall, he is doing exactly what he needs his team to do, or what his team, needs him to do. It is get the ball to the guys when they need to, and on third down, when everyone kind of has their attention elsewhere, make them pay and run for that first down. He is such a good runner. He is so smart, very good reads across the field, excellent athlete. There is so much there with this guy that I'm not going to criticize the 2-0 quarterback of the defending Super Bowl champions. It just feels like a thing I probably shouldn't be doing. Saquon Barkley, it wasn't the same blowaway day as yesterday or as last week, but I mean, the dude's awesome, right? A.J. Brown gets a little bit more involved. Devontae Smith making a couple huge plays. He is one where if he went to a different team, like he's the number one receiver on a few different NFL teams. Certainly the one across the field from my goodness, he's the number one receiver on that Kansas City Chiefs team. But this was the Eagles stepping up both on offense and defense and making the big plays when they needed to as this one rolls along. So the Eagles are still the Eagles. They're still the Super Bowl champions, and they just have so many ways that they can beat you. And now, of course, a first-round draft pick, or not first-round draft, but a high draft pick from Georgia is coming up with big plays as Mabuka comes up with a couple of big moments. I believe he had a sack and an interception in that game, or forced a turnover anyway. So, of course, the Eagles, another young, exciting player that is going to come in and make an impact for that team. But I think the bigger story here, because it's like, okay, the Eagles won, they look good. Maybe we can panic about their quarterback, but have we seen anyone that is going to make them worry right now? Because I don't. The bigger issue is on the Kansas City Chiefs side, as they now sit at 0-2. And understanding that there are injury problems and their number one receiver is suspended at the moment, it was obvious this team was a playmaker short, right? At least one playmaker short. Hollywood Brown had a couple of nice moves on the sideline, but they needed some big plays in the run game, and they didn't really get them. And that is where we're going to do, again, our kind of overreaction check-in for week number 2. That'll be the last time, I promise. But I'm leaning towards I was wrong on Isaiah Pacheco. Now, it's a couple good defenses in a row that he's played, but they needed him to make a couple big plays in this football game, and it just wasn't there. Same thing with Kareem Hunt. They just didn't have the guys making the plays when they needed to. Thornton was able to get deep down the field and open and come up with a very important play to keep Kansas City in it, but like Travis Kelce fumbles the ball. And a lot of it, again, is Patrick Mahomes having to ad-lib and make some really good plays. I think anybody criticizing Mahomes or I guess just Mahomes in this case is really missing the point. I thought the first couple weeks he has looked like Patrick Mahomes again, right? Like he is doing everything in his bag of superpowers to get this team across the finish line and using his legs a lot and running and making some big time plays in that and making some very good throws. It's just the guys he's throwing to aren't able to get separation, aren't able to get open, aside from a bit of a busted coverage on Thornton down the middle of the field that leads to a touchdown. But aside from that, like, I don't know what else Mahomes can do. Aside from, I forget who it was. Was it Giselle? When her and Brady were still her and Brady, and there was the tweet that she sent out that Brady can't catch the balls too. Like, unless Mahomes has figured out a way to throw the ball to himself and then run, which if anyone could do the Mr. Perfect, throw it downfield and catch it yourself, it would be that guy. But I don't know what else he could do. And I don't think the defense played particularly poorly in this game. It's just that's what the Eagles can do to teams. But it is so obvious that this team needs at least one more playmaker. And they are going to get a couple of them back in the next little bit. And you look at the schedule. Up next is the Giants. If they lose that one, then it's alarm bells everywhere, right? They should win that game. They have, I think it's the Ravens after that, then Jacksonville and the Lions. So there are tests. There are absolutely tests in there, but there are also some very winnable games. And this one against the Giants now should be the game that gets them back on track. So the Kansas City Chiefs, though, it is obvious that there are some problems there. And again, talking about what wasn't addressed in the offseason, I would suggest to you that the offensive line issues that we thought maybe were addressed because of the hype that we were getting about the kids that they drafted on the offensive line, that hasn't panned out so far. They had troubles protecting Mahomes against the Chargers, and they had trouble in creating any kind of openings in the run game for Pacheco and for Hunt here against the Eagles. It is not a gigantic bing bang boom or anything like that, but it's a concern right now. There are definitely red flags all over, and especially when you look at, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, you look at how good the Bills look, you look at how good the Baltimore Ravens look, and then on the other side, you look at how good the Eagles are playing football right now, and what the Lions looked like. This is not going to be a season that Mahomes and the Chiefs can just kind of play with their food and then make it in. That there are real significant challenges to the Kansas City throne right now. So a few alarm bells going off after week number 2 for Kansas City. The game of the weekend was certainly in Dallas as the Cowboys and Giants faced off in a game that sucked for 3 quarters and then just went bananas in quarter number 4. This looked like you and your buddies are getting ready to play Madden on a Friday night. And it's like, okay, we ready? Oh, man. Well, we're just not going to have snacks and drinks. Let's just throw Giants Cowboys on, and we'll let the computer play it. Let's run. Let's go get some snacks. Let's come back and we'll play what's left. And they came back in the fourth quarter. It's like, okay, we got a game. Let's play. And it just all of a sudden lit up. No defense could do anything. And all the offenses were nuts. We had 4 lead changes plus a 60-yard field goal to tie the game to send it to overtime. And then we went back into neither team can do anything mode in OT. And it ends with Russell Wilson throwing a pick, the Cowboys able to move the ball and hit a game-winning field goal to give them their first win of the season. On the Giants side, I think there are some real problems here. At least the offense looked functional, which was not something you could say after week 1 when it looked like one of the worst offensive teams in the NFL. Russell Wilson was airing it out, and he was trusting his guys. Wan'Dale Robinson was getting open, and Malik Neighbors wasn't, but he was making catches in big-time moments anyway. And Scadaboo was at least running a little bit for that group against a Cowboys team that got gashed in the run game a week ago. So some issues there. But at least the offense looked like it could get something going. But two things that would make me very worried if I were Brian Daboll today, because he is obviously on the hot seat right now. The main thing is that this offense needs to look like it is running functionally and taking a step forward. And this game, maybe it looked like that, but it certainly didn't in the first week. And the thing that is boggling my mind is they were alternating snaps at quarterback at one point with Jackson Dart. And I understand you want to get him some real life NFL reps, and that's fine. But so much of this sport at the quarterback position is getting into a rhythm, getting into a flow, and having a timing with your pass catchers. How are you able to do that with exact opposite ends of the experience spectrum out there from one play to the next, so your receivers don't get into that groove? Jackson Dart, like, yes, he is able to throw passes against human beings who are under NFL contract, but this isn't feeling like an NFL start for him. He's running in, he's making a play, and he's running out. How is that doing anything for him aside from letting him throw the football some? It's not creating any kind of chemistry with your wide receivers. It's not letting you get into any type of a flow, and you're really not teaching him a whole lot, because it's not like the defense is like, oh, these are the Jackson Dart snaps now, let's figure it out. So he's going up against very vanilla, very base defenses. I don't see what the benefit is, aside from we can say we put him into the game, and maybe when he does actually take over as the starter in a few weeks, it won't feel as big to him because he's thrown NFL passes in real NFL games. But I think there's a way to do that. I will suggest next week garbage time is going to come up for the Giants against Kansas City, and Dart is going to get some opportunities against a good defense. This doesn't seem like the way to do that at all. So I hated that. And then a big thing here, and maybe one of the bigger flags against the Giants this week, and pun fully intended, it was the penalties. And on defense, and I get that's not necessarily Daboll's thing, but he's the coach, so it kind of needs to be. They took a lot of really dumb penalties that put them in some bad spots. They had one play where a block was executed and they were able to get a first down, and the offensive lineman just keeps hammering on the Cowboys player until eventually it's unnecessary roughness, and all the good that they did on that drive. It was after the Robinson, the first 51-yard play down the field, I believe it was. It was the first real big play of the game. And they were able to get that, and they're down at like the 1. But then the offensive lineman takes this penalty, marches them back a little bit. They have to settle for a field goal, which kind of seems like a big thing in a game where they lost in overtime. And then defensively, you get a stop on CeeDee Lamb on a little bit of a wide receiver screen on 2nd and 10. So you've set them up in 3rd and long, but instead of just, hey, we got the stop, Phillips gets him and tries a German suplex on him, and that's a penalty. And it's 15 yards. And they get a stomp on CeeDee Lamb on 3rd down and 9. And they took 3 penalties on the play. Now, Lamb took another one, and so they were offsetting somehow. That 45 yards of penalties on the Giants and 10 on the Cowboys offset, and we had 3rd and 9 again. But still, it is undisciplined football from a team that kind of has to play perfect to win every week. And so if I am a decision maker with the Giants, that is not telling me that this is a coach that has both hands on the steering wheel right now. So even though the offense looked better, which is kind of what this guy is judged by, I think still some really big red flags around what's happening with the Giants at this point. For the Cowboys, once again, I thought Dak looked really good. Begrudgingly, I will admit that Pickens became a big part of this thing as it went on, but for most of this game, he was pretty quiet. And again, it was Turbin, it was Tolbert getting some of the look. So from a fantasy perspective, Pickens, I think, has a pretty good day, but that is not something I'm really banking on. I would hope that someone was watching the madness of this game, and I could maybe flip Pickens from a fantasy perspective. We'll have a lot more fantasy football talk coming up tomorrow. But for the Cowboys, the offense is back on track. The offense is going to be all right this year. But the Giants, that defense, it needed to be better in this game, and it wasn't. And then for the Cowboys, to see the problems that they had in defending what feels like a mediocre offense at this point should be very concerning for Dallas if they want to do anything this season. So I Yeah, I don't think that there is a lot that the Cowboys should take away from this in a, oh, we got this sort of a way. Dak looks good. The running backs look better than a lot of people expected them to. A few players came up with some big plays. So I don't want to take away anything from this, because that is a win. That is a really good win for the Cowboys. And to be able to come up with a few big plays when they needed it in scenarios where they couldn't in week one, albeit against much less resistance, that's still a good win for them. But I don't think it needs to mean that the Cowboys are now the toast of the town in the NFC or anything like that. It can just be, this was a strong win for Dallas. Up next, we don't need to go this in-depth on every game. The Buffalo Bills look really strong again. The one concern I have is they get down to the red zone, and hot damn, are they there for a while. It just feels like it takes them forever to pound the ball into the end zone. Josh Allen, bit of a quiet fantasy football day for him, but still pretty strong. Got a bloody nose at one point. That was kind of fun. They're able to put up 30. They look like a really good team. And the thing that would concern me if I were the rest of the AFC is how good James Cook looks in this backfield. Like, his combination of speed, agility, while also being able to finish his runs really hard makes him a very difficult running back to game plan for. And with him and Allen as a combination down at the goal line, they are just so difficult to defend when they get down there, even if it does take them a while. But the Bills, once again, kind of putting their stamp on this, that this is a good football team. On the Jets side, again, I know I'm kind of committed to the Jets. I'm not going to explain away a whole lot. They got dummied by a very good team. And this is something I think we need to remember, and it'll come up again here with the Lions. When we talk about teams taking step forward and taking steps back, I was not suggesting that the Jets were going to be one of the best teams in the AFC and that the Lions were going to be one of the worst teams in the AFC. I think the Jets are an improved football team, and I know they got whooped on in this game, but I think through 2 weeks you can see that there are some improvements that this team has made. Significant ones still to go, but there are improvements that have been made to this team. But they ain't the Bills, and the Bills knew that and treated them as such. So for the Jets, it is a back to the drawing board sort of a game. Adam Schefter is just going wild with a lot of breaking news that has been going out. So again, we'll get to reacting to some of this news here in just a little bit, but want to keep running through some of these games as, Buffalo looks really, really strong once again with a big win in week number 2. Baltimore Ravens also look really strong with a dominant win over the Cleveland Browns. A bit of a surprisingly quiet day for Derrick Henry, but again, you can see where this team becomes elite, right? Like Lamar Jackson throwing the ball all over the field and making a lot of very impressive throws that I don't think people give him credit for. And so to be able to establish that you can do that again, even against just this competition, but for the second week in a row, be able to put up 40 points, give up substantially less this time as the defense was able to shine. But this was a week where a lot of the pass catching options got to show what they could do, and Lamar got to show what he could do. So this is, I was interested to see what Baltimore was going to look like, trying to bounce back from that week 1 performance against Buffalo. Would there be a bit of a letdown? And there wasn't. They absolutely controlled every moment of this football game and were able to really bury this Cleveland Browns team late. On the Browns side, it is predictable. Joe Flacco cannot play against this level of team, and basically no one else on the team can. Myles Garrett, the guy's paid. And so we can be very happy for him for that. But holy hell, is that a human being who is wasted on the sidelines of the Cleveland Browns at this point? Because there's just not enough on that team to really do anything around one of the best players in football. So once again, the Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens are who we thought they were. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have some problems as they fall to the Seattle Seahawks. And I will say, after week 1, when the Jets put up a few of those points on them, as someone who, again, was high on the Jets coming into the season, I was a little bit like, hey, look at that. Jets putting up some yards against a good defense. Maybe my Justin Fields take isn't so bad after all. Now, after this one, I have concerns that there just might be some problems on this Pittsburgh defense. Now, a lot of this, I will have to say, as someone who was down on him this offseason, a lot of this is credit to Sam Darnold. He hung in there because this offensive line still isn't very good. They had a good day in the run game with Kenneth Walker, but this offensive line, at least from a fantasy standpoint anyway, this offensive line isn't good. And it didn't give Sam Darnold a whole lot of time. He was just content making very good throws while getting the bejesus beaten out of him in the pocket. He was getting hit a lot and making some really good throws right at the last moment. So I do think a lot of this is credit to Seattle and credit to their quarterback for being able to come up with some big plays. But if you were to look at the start of the Steelers season, looking at the Jets and the Seahawks, you have to think that this defense has a chance to make a couple of pretty big, impactful moments in the first couple of weeks. Instead, they've now given up 30 points in back-to-back weeks and feel like this is going to be a defense that Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw his way around of, and he's just not that guy anymore at this point. This is an aging quarterback who did not have a good season last year, coming off of an injury. And DK Metcalf made a couple great catches, great contested catches, and you can see there is some trust that is being developed with Aaron Rodgers. But when you see them go up against a good defense that I believe the Seahawks have, it was a lot of problems. Aaron is trying to hold the ball a little bit too long, as he always does, and his escapability isn't there. And the offensive line isn't holding up the way that some others have for him in the past. So again, I still think that this is a step back year for the for the Steelers. I just didn't think the defense was going to be a part of the problem, but right now it looks like it is. So a few alarm bells going off right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Up next, the Detroit Lions bounce back in a big time way as they make a statement against the Chicago Bears. This is what this offense can do still. And this was a statement made by the Lions saying to the rest of the National Football League, you need to watch out. Last week was not us. It does kind of make you feel like that Packers defense really is that high level. But this is still what we can do. And it was all areas, right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs had a really good game. Jamison Williams has a big play to get them down the field. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the most difficult covers of someone who isn't 6'7" in the red zone ever. Like, he is so crisp and pristine with his route running, and he and Goff have a real good kind of mind meld when it comes to that. So this offense, and again, I had said, I think there's going to be a bit of a fall off here for the Detroit Lions this season. That does not mean that they're going to be completely inept on offense. And you can see the high level that they got to. I think this was a win they needed. This was the type of performance that they really, really needed. This is a concerning one for the Bears because I actually thought they looked all right against Minnesota. I know a lot of people were complaining about Caleb Williams in that game. I thought he made enough plays that it looked like he kind of leveled up. And there were a couple more of them in this one. There just weren't as many. And then you see what happened to the Vikings on Sunday night against Atlanta. And it kind of makes you worry that maybe these two teams are just in similar spots, but more at the bottom than toward the top, maybe than what I was thinking right now in the NFC North, because that was a concerning performance. The defense was getting nothing. On an offensive line that got beat up a week ago, that Bears defense couldn't do a thing to get to Jared Goff. And then the offensive line wasn't holding up at all against Detroit. Now, they've always been able to do that. Even when the defense wasn't great, they have always been able to get to the quarterback because they have one of the best pass rushers alive in Aiden Hutchinson. But this was an eye-opening one for the Chicago Bears. And just to kind of lump them all in, Packers look great on Thursday. So there's your update on them. But to just kind of wrap up the whole NFC North thing here, the Vikings had some real troubles on Sunday night against Atlanta. Now, I do think Atlanta's defense is pretty good and improved, but McCarthy, again, still had some moments, still looked pretty good, but also it just couldn't get it. They just couldn't get it into a flow. And they just weren't able to really put a stamp on this game and make enough big plays to get them in a spot where they could move the ball down the field and take advantage of an Atlanta team that was failing to get into the end zone until the very end of the game. Defensively, it was bend but don't break. They came up with some big stops in the red zone to force some field goals, but some coverage issues as well. And so this was an eye-opener. That offensive line needs to be a strength for this team, and it wasn't. And McCarthy, it's not on him, I don't think. They had a ton of injuries, and now, as Schefter is tweeting out, including McCarthy, who is out for week 3 with an ankle sprain. That according to Adam Schefter. So it is going to be Carson Wentz likely to play this week. So there is a lot going on with Minnesota, but they are going to get Addison back here soon. I don't think this is full-on panic button or anything like that, but I do think that there isn't as much optimism around Minnesota as I had coming out of week 1. That is for sure. McCarthy, again, made some plays, but not nearly enough to make me feel like this is a team that can get back to anything close to what they were from a season ago. We'll get to more of the NFL story in just a second, but I mean, while you're watching this, just hit that share button. It's like my head is right down below. So just hit the share button and send this off to a few people that you like and a couple people you don't, just to throw them off a little bit. But really want to continue to grow Couch Potato Diary, and you guys can help out with that in a big time way. The other part of that Sunday nighter was the Atlanta Falcons with a solid win over the Minnesota Vikings. And we don't have to go too in-depth on this part. Bijan Robinson's awesome. His ability to create so much of an opening with just one subtle cut. And they are quick. It is so subtle in just a bit of a shift, and now there's a huge opening, and he can go. And a big credit to the offensive line. I thought Atlanta's line dominated in this game. But Bijan is able to turn 1-yard runs into 5-yard runs, 5-yard runs into 15-yard runs, and so on. He is that talented and he is that good, and he is a weapon for this team, obviously. Like, we don't need to go too far into this. I thought Algier had a really good game as well, just running hard into that offensive line. And it is those players that make it very frustrating that this team was settling for field goals so often. And it wasn't like it was like 4th and 15 and they have to kick. It was 4th and 3, 4th and 5. When you have someone that talented in Bijan Robinson, and quite frankly, a young quarterback on the ropes, that the way they did with Minnesota, this felt like an opportunity to put them away early. And it was just points on the board, field goals. And they felt like they were completely in control of the game and up 6-0. That needs to change. There needs to be, I think, a real governor kind of taken off of this team. Penix looks good. For the second week in a row, he looked all right. Didn't look as good as he did in week number 1, but made a few very good throws. Again, not when they needed them to, but I do think that there were some big plays that were made for Michael Penix. Pitts was involved. I think I kind of undersold his involvement last week. It was just when the game was on the line, it didn't feel as impactful, but he was involved right from the word go. Again here, Drake London has a tough fumble, but he looked all right. This is a good offense that Atlanta is putting out there, and one that I think they can feel quite excited about going forward after this big win. A lot of concerns with the Miami Dolphins right now. The Dolphins' struggles continued, especially like offensively. It wasn't perfect, and there were some issues, but the defense is where I would have the biggest concerns because like Daniel Jones was able to have a good day against Denver again. But you look at what the Raiders defense was able to do to New England, and then what New England was able to do to your defense, and that's a problem. Like, they're just not getting stops anywhere on the field. And then offensively, at least it looked a little better. But it still is like they are play calling as if they're afraid of their quarterback. It is quick passes all over the place. And they have a ton of talent to get the job done with Achane, able to bust that one for a touchdown. Waddle can. Tyreek Hill, not as much as he used to, but he can. But it's the big moments that Tua has big misses on. They're marching down trying to win a football game, and he has Tyreek Hill wide open and he misses him. Pocket wasn't going crazy, just missed him. And then game on the line, he steps up, rolls to the left, and throws right into a defender for the interception. It is just, it's not good enough. And it is looking very obvious now that it's not going to be good enough. And I don't know what you do right now if you're Miami. You got Tua. I don't know if that's changing. We saw last year the offense actually got quite a bit worse with anyone else not named him in there. But it just continues to look really, really bad for the Miami Dolphins. And Mike McDaniels, that seat that he's sitting on, not going to get any cooler after this week. Are the Indianapolis Colts legit? That's going to be a question a lot of people are asking over the next 72 hours as we get ready for another week in the NFL. I don't know if they're this legit, but I do think what we're seeing with Indianapolis, they're 2-0, it's looking good, right? And the offense has been putting up like they may as well just cut their punter because they're never going to use him. It's been a really impressive run for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think what we're seeing now is Jonathan Taylor and the weapons that they have out in Indianapolis. I think we are seeing the effects of not having consistent, even average quarterback play. And this is also not doing Anthony Richardson any favors right now in looking to get another job in the NFL, because this looks a million times better than anything that this team has done. And really the only change is at quarterback, right? Like they didn't make wide sweeping changes to the personnel group. They didn't make wide sweeping changes to play calling. It was just the quarterbacks switched to a guy who was underperforming in a bad offense. And he has now been able to get a lot out of this team. But this has been a real good reminder that Jonathan Taylor is one of the most talented football players in the NFL. His speed and the acceleration that he can get to, great in the pass catching, all of that, he is showing that he is a dude that should be reckoned with. I will say the defense obviously took a pretty substantial step back this week. Bo Nix made a couple not great plays, and really the Colts should have lost this game, but a dumb leverage penalty at the end sets them up for a field goal to win the game, and they're able to do it. But credit to the Colts, they're 2-0, and we are seeing now that there's actually quite a bit of talent on this football team when it can be utilized even a little bit. Last one is the Carolina Panthers. There are problems there. And that game turned into one of the weirder ones because we actually get an onside kick. But you look at the Bryce Young effectiveness chart that you could roll through. And Bryce Young, at any time this game was close, Bryce Young was bad. Turnovers, bad decision-making, bad throws, bad execution. And all of a sudden the game gets out of hand. Then Carolina goes to cover two, prevent whatever, and all of a sudden they're able to move the ball down the field. And then once it's 27-22 and they have the ball back with a minute to go, now all of a sudden receivers are getting covered and he's not able to make these throws. He's not able to make the decisions. He's not processing what he is seeing quick enough, and it is leading to sacks and it is leading to turnovers, and it leads to a loss for Carolina. I still think there is a good quarterback in there, but it is becoming really difficult to make that case now. And now I do also think a lot of this is on the front office for Carolina, because this offensive line isn't good enough. It is not close to being good enough. They are giving up way too much pressure on their small quarterback for him to really be able to do anything. Now, he is also holding on to it way too long. There are way too many, it is supposed to be 1, 2, 3 drop, and then you go, right? Sometimes you get a little bit longer than that. But he is going 1, 2, 3 drop. All right, what are we doing? Let's see what's happening here. And I hate it, and you see it a ton in college, and you see it a ton in him. It is, and you see a little bit in McCarthy. It is 1, 2, 3, set, and they stand still. It's like, well, what's happening now? And they're surveying the field. That is a death sentence, I think, for a quarterback when you are in that particular way. You don't have to be bouncing around like a boxer the whole time, but it just has to look like you are active and ready to do anything. And it just, defenses are too quick to go from bop, set. Okay, and now locked into our throwing motion and we go. Defenses are too quick in the NFL to be doing that. You have to always be ready there. And it seems like it's not processing quickly enough. The offensive line isn't helping them out, but he's not helping them out either. So concerns all over. And the defense is a problem. The defense is a real problem. And I understand that with a young quarterback that you have invested a lot in, making some big trades to go out and bring this kid in as your starting quarterback. So you want to surround him with everything, get him all that stuff. And if you are losing games 35-28 with your young quarterback, fine. But in the time they have had him now, they've used draft picks on wide receivers. McMillan looks like he could be something, but they missed on a couple of other ones. And anything that they've invested in the offensive line, it hasn't worked. And so you have, again, it's kind of like the Bengals at the top of this, kind of a nice full circle moment while we close out this part of the show. But you look at what they addressed. Obviously the issues, get this kid some help to make sure we know what we have in him. and we'll deal with the defense later. But you didn't get him enough to work within the passing game. You have not succeeded in solidifying your offensive line, and the defense is still a problem. So they have spent their resources and they have focused on one spot to try to improve their football team, and they have failed at that, and the rest of it is a disaster. And so again, you are leading to some very, very big questions out in Carolina at this particular time. But it really does feel, honestly, it feels like the size thing is too much to overcome. Like he just gets buried and disappears in that pocket, and every throw looks really difficult when you have even one body around him. So some real big problems with the Carolina Panthers, I will absolutely say, coming out of week number 2. Make sure you follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, all of it. Things always changing around here with Couch Potato Diary, so make sure you follow me everywhere that you can so you can get the latest from this particular program. All right, Deeds in the chat with an awesome question. Besides the Bengals, what 2-0 team is likely to miss the playoffs? So let's take a look at it. The season has started well for a few NFL teams, but maybe it's a little bit of fool's gold with this. So what teams in the NFL that are off to great starts still won't find their way into January? I have always said that the best segments on this show come from the chat, which maybe I should do some introspection on that, but still, love it when the chat comes up with a great idea, and we got one here, looking at what 2-0 teams should or could still miss in the NFL playoffs. So let me just pull up the standings here. All right, let's start. Green Bay Packers, they're not missing the playoffs. I feel we could almost put the X in beside their name right now. Like, they're out of this conversation entirely. Bills, it's a no-doubter, whatever. Like, we're scratching off the obvious ones here right away. So Packers, Bills, Eagles, congratulations, you have clinched your spot in the 2025-2026 NFL playoffs. A giant celebration for all of you. Obviously, a lot of this is pending injury. Those are the only ones that I can say 100% locked in right now. Let's look at the rest of them, and we'll start with the Indianapolis Colts. They are 2-0 to start this season. The arguments against them missing the playoffs are, have you seen the rest of the division? And have you seen us in the first couple of weeks? So that's basically it. It's we have played very well and the rest of our division hasn't, right? Like the Texans, they go tonight on Monday Night Football, so who knows? The Titans, I've said it before, that Titans team is not going to be an easy out. Rams put them away eventually, but Cam Ward is showing quite a few glimpses right now. Jacksonville looked good against Carolina, but we just discussed Carolina isn't exactly the most resistance. And then against a Bengals team with their backup quarterback in, they still lose that game. So it does seem like the door is wide open for the Colts to come away with a playoff berth here. I would still caution because there are enough concerns still defensively that I worry that they're going to get the stops that they need to as they go along throughout the season. And I just can't imagine this level of Daniel Jones is going to keep up. Eventually, teams are going to be able to kind of lock that in. Now, I will say, Denver seemed like a team that should be able to. Like, that's a really, really good defense that they just kind of torched. Surtain was out for a lot of it. I really like, I didn't say it before, I meant to, but Jaylen Warren looks like a guy already, right? Like, he looks like there's a confidence with him. There is a connection with the quarterback. All of that is clicking right now with him. The schedule coming up, they close out September at Titans. That feels like a win. At Rams, that I don't think they get there with that one. Then it's home Raiders, home Cardinals, at Chargers, home Titans. Holy smokes. Colts are going to make the playoffs. Like, look at it. Yeah, I don't think the Colts count in this one. So Indianapolis Colts do not count in the 2-0 teams that are going to miss the playoffs. Up next, as I'm running through this, San Francisco 49ers. That Saints team might prove to be a bit of a pesky one as the year goes on. I am still going to say, God, San Francisco's schedule, again, it's just so easy for them. Next week, they have a matchup with the Cardinals. Then they get Jacksonville. In October, it's at Rams, at Bucks, home Falcons, at Texans. That's a bit of a tougher stretch. At Giants, home Rams, at Cardinals, then home Panthers, at Browns, bye, week 14 bye. Hate that. And then home Titans, at Colts, home Bears, home Seahawks. It's still an easy schedule. I don't think it's as easy as maybe we thought at the beginning of the season, because I do think this division is maybe a little bit better than some people were anticipating. I'm going to say they miss. I think that obviously, like, the Brock Purdy thing is a setback. They were able to get the softest of landing spots without their starting quarterback in, and then Mac Jones, looks okay. But I still feel like when faced with a good offense, this defense is going to have some problems. There are enough holes that make me now a little bit concerned about what they're going to do there. And with no Kittle for the next 4 weeks, there's just not a lot offensively. Jennings comes up with a big play in this game. Christian McCaffrey was great. Pearsall had a couple of moments as well, but there's just something missing about this team getting there. So I feel more comfortable with the Rams right now. The Seahawks defense, I think, is going to give them some problems as they have a second matchup upcoming this season. So I'm going to say the 49ers are going to be a 2-0 team that misses the playoffs. Up next is the Bengals. We've talked about this one. I don't want to say a lock because that feels dismissive, but it feels as close to a lock as you can get in a segment like this. At 2-0, with two of the easier games on their schedule already gone, looking at what they have the rest of the way here. Next week, they have at the Vikings, which apparently just got easier with Carson Wentz now at quarterback for Minnesota. Then it's at Broncos. I get that the Broncos just lost. That's not a team that I want to be facing with my backup quarterback in there. And then in October, it is the Lions at home, but you tell me this defense can stop what the Lions did on Sunday? At the Packers, who look like the best team in football right now. Home Steelers, we'll see. And then home Jets. And then in November, before their Week 10 bye, they are home Bears, at Steelers, home Patriots, at Ravens. It feels like in a lot of those games, first blush, all right, this isn't that difficult. But just to see who they have had trouble with in the first couple of weeks and then to go the rest of the way, I just don't know how you can feel confident with this team in the AFC. They're not going to win this division. I will tell you that for free right now. Baltimore is obviously significantly better than they are and are going to win this division. And so we're looking at 3 wildcard spots right now. The Steelers could be right there, right? Like the South looks like it's going to maybe have more than one playoff team. And right now, it's the Chargers in first place I guess they're 1-0 technically. So yeah, the Chargers and Raiders playing for first place in the West tonight. But does this team with Browning at quarterback look significantly better than anything going on in the AFC West? And I am including the Raiders in this one. Maybe the Raiders, but definitely not the Chargers, not the Broncos. And even still with the issues that they're having at 0-2, I don't think the Chiefs are shaking in their boots about if they were to have any kind of matchup with the Bengals. So yeah, Bengals out. 100% Bengals out right now. Now we have a couple teams 1-0, Chargers at 1-0, Bucks at 1-0. Feels weird to include them in this discussion when we don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I will say both of those right now feel like playoff teams to me. Raiders still feels like a no. I still don't have confidence in what this group can do defensively in the secondary, but still at 1-0, so they're kind of we'll see. And then you get the Cardinals and the Rams. Cardinals feel like a no right now. Kyler, it's too many boneheaded mistakes at bad times. These first 2 weeks should have been the stamp that they put on the season. We are here. We have leveled up. You have to take us seriously. Instead, they escape by the hair on their chinny chin chin. And I get there's a lot here, but on theirs there isn't. To escape by just that against the Saints and against the Panthers is very concerning for when they have to play, with all due respect, real NFL teams. So I don't feel overly confident about what they are going to be doing to get into the playoffs. So they're going to be a 2-0 team that misses for me. Rams, I'm going to say they get in. I like the defense a lot, and they're able to build up a little bit of a cushion here with Matthew Stafford, as I still have concerns about what the back issue is going to be, but the offense is clicking right now, and it's a very good young defense on that side. So I will say the Rams are a 2-0 team that does get in. So we have a couple that we think are going to miss. Thought that maybe the Colts were going to be out. I feel like that's not necessarily going to be the case, but 49ers are a 2-0 team that I don't think makes it. Bengals, absolutely a 2-0 team that I don't think makes it. And Cardinals, 2-0 team, that I don't think make it into the playoffs. And just looking at it now, maybe we'll do this on the flip side tomorrow with 0-2 teams to make the playoffs. This was fun. Thank you for that, Deeds. Fun little chat here to have on your Monday after an NFL week. Again, we are doing a lot of stuff with Couch Potato Diary, live on multiple different platforms all the time. So make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, you hit that notification bell so you know the next time we go live. The next plan is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Going to do our regular fantasy football stuff, Monday Night Football recap, and a little bit more from the world of wrestling and hockey. Maybe boxing, as well. But a lot coming up here through Couch Potato Diary, so make sure you have that notification bell clicked. Also in the chat, Connor D from YouTube. What was your snack lineup for yesterday's games? Went with the went nachos. Went out, got a couple different kinds of chips. Pre-shredded cheese, because what? Am I going to shred cheese while football's happening? I don't think so. So I had that. Had some chicken lined up as well. Shredded all over. So it was a lot of chicken nachos on the day. And then mixed it up with just cheese nachos. And then went back to chicken nachos after that. So rolled with that for the game day lineup. And I know it sounds like a shill, but legitimately, a little shaky shake in the old Swift to help get through. Could have had the logo facing the other way. Bad product placement by me. My bad. Either way, had that going. And then a couple little ciders to top the night off. So that was the snack and bevy options from my NFL Sunday. That started early, watching the Rider game that we're going to get to in a little bit. All right, my phone has been buzzing a lot as we've been doing this live stream. So let's take a look and react together at Adam Schefter tweeting out a bunch of news from the NFL. Let's do some NFL news and notes for this week after a busy week 2 in the NFL. All right, apparently Adam Schefter is paid by the tweet, because a lot has happened news-wise here in the NFL this week. So if it looks like I'm reading off my phone, it's because I'm reading off of my phone just to see everything that he has sent out. Try to make sure that I don't go through like every single one. All right, let's roll. With Austin Eckler out for the season. Didn't mention that one before. Going to talk about that in fantasy football tomorrow. But with Austin Eckler out for the season with an Achilles injury, major bummer for him, and for me in the Vampire League, but mainly for him. Due to a torn Achilles, the Commanders are signing veteran Chase Edmonds to their practice squad. I would imagine it's the rookies, but Edmonds, there could be something there for him anyway. Also, want to give Deeds a shout out. He gave us the segment idea. Also, now a 19-month subscriber with twitch.tv/primetimepk, and with a little bit of a chirp there for Toxic in the chat as well. Love you, Toxic, but I hope Collins drops every ball his way tonight. By the way, hi, PK. Hi to Deeds. Forgot to say that before. But yes, always appreciate the subscription, Deeds. Thank you so much for that. And just talking about fantasy football reminded me of that, as I need some help in the Vampire League. But I got a shot to do some vampiring this week on a team that has Saquon Barkley. So I would feel very good about that. Tennessee Titans and 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons have agreed to a revised contract that includes a $600,000 raise for the 2025 season. So a bit of just a tweak there, and probably one I could have just skipped, but Simmons really does feel like a strong part of the defensive front, the strongest part of the defensive front for the Titans, and is the type of player that gives me pause in thinking that this is going to be a disaster season for the Titans, because I think that defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. So nice that he gets rewarded. Adam Schefter also tweeting, Bears Pro Bowl cornerback Jalen Johnson out indefinitely with a groin injury. Sources tell me and Courtney Cronin from ESPN. The team is still evaluating the full extent of the injury, whether surgery is necessary, and how long Johnson will be sidelined. That is a huge loss to a Bears defense that can't really afford to lose a whole lot right now. Anyway, that is a really big problem for Chicago. That defense is going to be called upon to step up a lot, and he is such an important part of that defense. For him to be out for an extended period of time, and that feels really bad, this is a problem for Chicago, a really big problem for them. Jeremy Fowler, this is a retweet from Schefter. Jeremy Fowler, Ravens Pro Bowl edge rusher Kyle Van Noy is bracing to potentially miss multiple games due to a hamstring injury suffered Sunday per sources. Van Noy led the team in sacks last year, is hoping the injury is short term. The defense obviously stepped up last week against the Cleveland Browns, but that's the Cleveland Browns. Against a high-level offense like the Buffalo Bills, there were some stretches where the defense looked real good, but Van Noy is such an important part at the center of that defense. And with a matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in the next few weeks, this is a really tough time to deal with that level of an injury. So a very, very big problem, I think, for the Ravens here as well, as a centerpiece of their defense goes down. And when we talked about the Bengals as a team that could miss the playoffs even though they're going 2-0, they still have the backup quarterback. That's a problem. But this is the type of thing that allows teams to hang around in the division. And specifically now, I guess their main focus probably is the Buffalo Bills. They lose the game against Buffalo, so that sets them back. But that number one seed in the AFC, to be able to control where the road in the AFC playoffs goes through, is going to be really important. And if you just have an extra banana peel that you slip on because your sacks leader from a season ago is out of the lineup for a few weeks, that's how playoff losses happen when you have to go out on the road for a few weeks. Rams placing Akello Witherspoon on injured reserve due to a broken clavicle. So that sucks for a pretty fun young defense out with the LA Rams. And now this is an interesting one as well. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels has a knee injury that has his status for Sunday's game against the Raiders in question per league source. The injury is not believed to be serious, but it remains uncertain whether Daniels will be able to play on Sunday. That obviously is a gigantic game changer for Washington. Everything that they are doing right now revolves around that quarterback, right? Like, if you're the Bengals, you can squint and see Brown, Chase, and Higgins being able to carry a average to below average quarterback in Browning to maybe a couple of wins. This team doesn't do a thing without Jaden Daniels as the leader on the field and off of it. So some very, very big concerns, I would imagine, coming out of Washington, a team that right now is 1-1, kind of just got their lunch money taken by the Packers in week number 2 on Thursday Night Football, setting up for what should have been maybe a bit of an easier test. Well, certainly easier than the Packers, but a bit of an easier test with the Raiders, now maybe dealing with a backup quarterback. So definitely something to keep an eye on for the week. Schefter saying, again, heading into week number 3, Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels dealing with knee sprain. Justin Fields in concussion protocol. He got knocked out of that game figuratively and literally later on in it. But that is something to keep in mind. This week it would be Tyrod Taylor as the backup there. Brock Purdy dealing with a toe injury, and Joe Burrow needs toe surgery. Also, significant losses for the Carolina Panthers. Retweet of David Newton from ESPN. Panthers guard Robert Hunt has a torn biceps and will go to IR with surgery. Center Austin Corbett has an MCL on his left knee and will also go on IR with the possibility of returning. That is, look, when you have a quarterback who is small, you need the interior of your offensive line to step up. The interior of that offensive line is not stepping up, and now to have it banged up is a real problem for Carolina. I can't imagine they were just keeping the great options in the run or in the offensive line on the sideline to redshirt this year. So an already offensive line gets a couple really big holes in it. That is a huge issue for Carolina moving forward. And now the Vikings problems. About 36 minutes ago, just in, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for the Vikings, has been ruled out for Sunday's game versus the Bengals due to an ankle injury. Also, from Kevin Seifert of ESPN, Vikings running back Aaron Jones is unlikely to play this week against the Bengals, per coach Kevin O'Connell. The precise language on McCarthy, team not expecting him to play this week. So now, a Sunday matchup shapes up like Jake Browning of the Bengals against Carson Wentz for the Vikings. So, yes, lots of injuries and lots of issues coming out of week 2 in the NFL. The Washington one, it doesn't seem like it's a very long-term problem right now. The McCarthy one That's a real blow to a team that is trying to get into a rhythm and get their quarterback some reps and some snaps after missing his entire first season. So this is not going to help that. The good news is that when he comes back, it will be with Addison as a bit of a two-headed monster out there. So maybe he'll be able to hit the ground running. But this was a week you wanted to improve on, right? This was a week you wanted to learn from and try to adapt to, where it didn't click at all against a Falcons defense that was giving them some problems, and they were not able to dominate on the offensive line in the fourth quarter the way they were against Chicago, and there weren't the openings that they thought they could have. And so how does he adjust to that now? Now we're going to get a few weeks to have to answer that question. So a difficult bit of injury news across the league. Just a couple other notes from me on this one. Special teams continues to be a real issue in the NFL. Still seeing, not as many as last week, but still seeing a lot of kicks missed across the league and some big returns in the NFL. That I think it's not alarm bells. That's a whole lot of fun. But the other one, holy crap, were there flags all throughout the league last week. And I do think that the refs kind of need to chill on a few of these and let a few go. But these teams, it's not just, oh, the offense hasn't really clicked and anything like that when you don't play in the preseason. But when you don't play in the preseason, all of a sudden, now you forget the rules. Not entirely, but you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, that guy's maybe a little bit sharper. Well, now I have to hold on to him. And now it's kind of taking the easy way out. So we will see if that becomes less of an issue. But it was a real problem throughout the league, I thought, this week. The penalty flags really did. It added to the drama of a lot of these games, but it really made it feel like a sloppy week in the National Football League. So anyway, those are kind of all the thoughts from the NFL. And so today, going to split this up in the same way we did on Monday. And this might be a Monday thing going forward because your boy has NFL thoughts. So we're going to, for podcast listeners, this is going to close out episode or part number 1 for today. So thank you for listening. Shout out to Sea of Dead. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime for 25% off. So podcast listeners, part 1 is done. For people of the stream, this one is going to keep rolling on here in just a matter of moments. Part 2 of today's podcast, we're going to be looking at the story in the National Hockey League as we continue to get ready for the NHL season, some CFL to talk about as well, and prospect time for the Blue Jays as Trey Yesavage makes his Blue Jays debut, plus some wrestling talk to round things out today. So a lot to dive into. And we will begin part 2 with a question from the Twitch chat as TallJohn75 says, NHL question, if and when you get to Flames talk, Ovi and Sid are coming the same week and it may be last time for both. Can only afford one. Which game do you choose? Love that. I think for me, because I have been able to see both of them, to be perfectly frank. So that's, if there is one you haven't seen, it's obvious, and you just, that one, right? Like that's the clear and obvious answer here. I think to me, Sid is still the one that, oh, you've never seen either. I think Sid to me is still kind of the special one. Like, I understand Ovi is the goal scorer and everything like that, like the goal scoring record. So there isn't really a wrong answer here either way. For me, just because of like this era feels like it is defined by Sidney Crosby, right? Like with all the Sid the Kid, watching him through the World Juniors and as this high level prospect, be a transformative prospect for the Pittsburgh Penguins organization and just kind of be this face of the NHL and this era. And then to get the golden goal for Canada in 2010 and to still be a giant factor on the Four Nations team in 2025. I just think that he is still someone that you're going to want to see before it all comes to a close. So he would be the one for me. You can make obvious ones for Ovechkin too. Like there is no wrong answer here. If you want Ovechkin, all-time goal-scoring leader, one of the most exciting players in the history of the National Hockey League, and quite honestly, it's just a better team to watch right now. Like when you're going to see Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, you are going to see Sidney Crosby. And then the other Penguins will be there, but it might not be the best game. Now, it also gives you, if you're a Flames fan, gives you the best chance to see a Flames win, because that's a bad team out in Pittsburgh. But I still think you got to go. And to your point there, Tall John, yeah, I'm leaning Sid, still Malkin too, and remote possibility of Marc-Andre Fleury. I love what they're doing in Pittsburgh with Fleury getting the one-day contract to play as the goalie in the preseason game. I think that's awesome. I love that they are doing that with him. I think that should be now a standard thing in the league. I think that's awesome to do that. With Sid and Malkin, of course, there's that too. Like Letang as well. Even Erik Karlsson was a fun guy at points in his NHL career, right? So it's a lot of those guys. With Washington, you are seeing a team that was one of the best in the NHL last year, and no one has scored more goals in the history of the league than Ovechkin. So there are obvious ways that you can kind of sell the Ovi one, but if you can only pick one of them, it has to be Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins there going forward. 100%, I would agree on that. Let's keep the hockey talk going as we get ready for another season in the National Hockey League. There are some players who are feeling the heat right now. So let's take a look at the NHL players that are on the hot seat for the 2025-2026 NHL season. Another season in the NHL is just about here. So today, let's look at the players that need to kind of step it up a little bit, or else they could be on the move out of some pretty cushy situations. At least that's how we're going to start this. Our I guess I didn't really order these. Hey, I'll bounce around and we'll come up with the order together. Our number 5 player on the hot seat is Jesperi Kotkaniemi for the Carolina Hurricanes. The only reason that his seat maybe isn't as hot is I don't know who could still be wanting to take on 4 years at over $4 million for Kotkaniemi. The Montreal Canadiens took a chance on the kid and drafted him high. I don't think they did him any developmental favors with how they utilized him early, and it just feels like he's never been able to get on track. Now he's with Carolina. He is halfway through that gigantic offer sheet that the Hurricanes threw his way, and at $4 million a year, he is a fourth-line center for a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations. So I just feel like if Carolina is looking to make a big splash. Now, they already have a lot of salary cap space anyway, but if they're looking to make one more big splash, a la the Rantanen move from a season ago, Kotkaniemi is probably definitely involved in it, or he's on his way to like a Chicago or a San Jose or a Calgary in some kind of a salary dump type of a move to get him off of the books so we can free up a roster spot and be able to make a big push at a big time player. So Kotkaniemi needs to find whatever potential people thought he had. He needs to get there this upcoming season. So he is number 5 on the players on the hot seat. Number 4, this one is basically a 40-way tie. It is everyone on the Islanders and the Rangers. There are some obvious exceptions, right? Like Barzal's not going anywhere. Fox, Shesterkin not going anywhere. Sorokin not going anywhere. But aside from that, if this is another down year in New York, whether it be Long Island or Broadway, then it feels like massive changes are coming. The Islanders already went that direction with the trade of Noah Dobson. They have a couple of guys who are on expiring contracts and a couple others that aren't. The expiring contracts, if it's another bad season in New York for the Islanders, I think it's obvious those ones are going. And then you look at what you could get back for Pollock, the guys on defense that have similar names, Horvat as well. Like, there are a lot of pieces on this team that would benefit playoff teams. Now, if you are saying that, well, why don't you just make this a playoff team? They've tried. They gave it a good run. It doesn't feel like it's clicking now. And if it's another down year, it feels like this will be a restart with already future face of the franchise, Matthew Schaefer, as the number 1 overall pick coming out of the draft. And with the Rangers, this has been a bit of a surprising era where they thought they were going to rebuild. They get Lafreniere and Kakko, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're good, and we're making runs at championships and stuff like that. And so now, though, Panarin's in the last year of his contract. Zibanejad kind of feels like he's on the other end of it. Who the hell knows what you're getting out of JT Miller? You've already traded a couple of franchise icons out the door, specifically Kreider. I feel like if this year goes sideways with the Rangers, it is full teardown mode. I am stunned that Drury is still the man at the helm for this with the Rangers, but if this year goes bad, there's no way Panarin's coming back. And at that point, I think it's all systems go with a bunch of trades heading out of the Rangers. So maybe cheating a little bit on this list. But number 4 is basically everyone on the Islanders and on the Rangers. Coming in at number 3, it is Mike Matheson with the Montreal Canadiens. This is a franchise that has drafted very effectively on the blue line, and those prospects are starting to come through, right? Like Goulet is already just a rock on that blue line. Hudson wins the Rookie of the Year last year, getting that Calder Trophy, and feels like has just scratched the surface of what he could be. They traded for Noah Dobson. They have a lot of pieces in this organization that feel like defensemen of the future. Matheson's on the final year of his contract. He really needs to show that he can be a leader in that locker room and a steadying force for a young defenseman. And I get, like, he has been a lot of what Montreal would want him to be. You look at some of the underlying numbers and they're not great. He hasn't had positive Corsi high danger chances for any numbers in his 3 years with the Montreal Canadiens. So you start to get a little bit worried for him about where does he fit long term with a franchise that's looking to take a step forward and has a lot of really good defensemen that it feels like maybe he's just getting in the way. And so if they are looking for a big ticket center that costs around $8.7 million a season, I know he still has a year left on his contract, but that could be very, very quickly if they are looking to make a big time splash. And it doesn't feel like it would take a lot for them to kind of backfill behind him if they wanted to make a franchise altering move for a generational talent at the center position. At number 2, it's also Montreal, and it's Kirby Dach. They are looking to take another step forward this year. And if they do that, Dach is falling further and further behind. He is such a tantalizing player, right? You see the upside when he is healthy and you see what he can do, and it just never really clicks because he doesn't stay healthy. But now, like before, it was okay, young player, having some trouble staying healthy, but we need to kind of just let him develop. We're not winning games this year, it's fine. But now you're winning games. Now you're going to playoff games. And this team is expected to take another step this season. He's their number 2 center at the moment. You need your number 2 center when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and see what you are going up against with Florida, with Toronto, with Tampa Bay, with Carolina, right? You see what you are stacking up against. Even Ottawa, right? They're 3 deep right now at centers that you feel pretty good about. So Dach needs to find that gear. He needs to stay healthy, or else this team is going to pass him by. And again, talking about a certain center out in Pittsburgh that everyone is attaching Montreal to rumors-wise, that is a really, really big possibility. And something that Dach, I think, needs to try to play his... Not that Kirby Dach is going to be the reason why you don't get Sidney Crosby, but he needs to make sure he's not part of the package heading back to Pittsburgh and into a bit of obscurity right now and try to stay on a team that is certainly on the rise. So he is the number 2 player on the hot seat in the NHL for the upcoming season. Before we get to number 1, I just want to remind you guys that you can catch Couch Potato Diary wherever you go in podcast form, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. So the number 1 player who is sitting on the hottest seat for the 2025 NHL season is Stuart Skinner, goalie for the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, it feels weird to say there's a lot of pressure on a team that has gone to back-to-back Stanley Cups. But those have been entirely winnable, and they have 2 of the best players in the world on their team right now. One of them is without a contract for next season. So the pressure is very, very high in Edmonton. This has to be the last chance that Stuart Skinner gets. If he gets pulled again in the playoffs, you have to look for an upgrade. That should be, obviously, number 1 on the priority list right now is getting Connor McDavid signed to the longest contract you could possibly sign him to. That's option 1. 2, maybe find a better defenseman. But I think right below Connor McDavid, honestly, is figuring out this goalie spot. Skinner, from all accounts, seems like a great dude, right? Awesome hang, and has come up with big moments at times. But I don't think he has been consistently good enough to get this Oilers team to where Connor McDavid and everyone else thinks that they should be able to get to. And if he is a problem again this season, Edmonton has to make a move at that spot to continue to be a competitive NHL franchise going for the Stanley Cup. So Stuart Skinner is the player that I feel is feeling the most heat for this upcoming season. Just going back through them, Kotkaniemi was number 5. At 4, it was everyone, basically, on the Islanders and Rangers. 3, Mike Matheson. 2, his Canadiens teammate Kirby Dach. And number 1, Stuart Skinner. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat for those watching live and in the comments for those watching after the fact. Who else? I mean, A, am I wrong on any of these? Are some of these guys just like, no, man, they're fine? Or is there someone else who is maybe feeling a little bit of the heat for the upcoming NHL season? Let me know in the chat or in the comments. Tall John in the comments, getting a goalie won't matter if Connor does not sign. That is key number 1. Yes, no, of course. You could just bring back Martin Brodeur in his prime. And if Connor McDavid doesn't sign, it's not going to matter for them. But I do think also, if the McDavid thing drags on into at the end of the season, right? Which, holy hell if it does. The conversations we will be having. But I do feel like if they lose in the playoffs again and goaltending is the issue, I do think that it will hinder their chances of keeping Connor McDavid around, right? So yes, signing Connor McDavid is obviously key number 1, but getting the goaltending figured out does feel like it would help key number 1 very, very much, you know? So that's kind of my reasoning for that one. Thoughts from Connor D. Thoughts on the idea that either Dobson or Hudson will have a relatively disappointing year because one of them will have their opportunity reduced. Sort of a Burns-Carlson situation. I do think that, yeah. I think we kind of did this, and I'm going to be doing it a little bit later on this week here, going through each statistical category and picking guys who will fall out, guys who could jump in. I initially had put Dobson in as someone who could get a bit of a bump playing on a better offensive team with Montreal, but it was brought up to me, hey, he's probably power play 2, right? Like, you're not taking Hudson off there. They got a bunch of guys, like, he's not making that first power play unit. So, yeah, I think statistically, it's going to seem weird that Dobson may have less points this year than he did last season because he's on a significantly better offensive team, but it's just the opportunities won't be there. I think Hudson, it will probably be the shining star of that, and Dobson will be number 2. But I think there's absolutely a world, Connor, where that becomes a situation out in Montreal where one of those guys statistically has a bit of a down year there for sure. Connor D also saying that Stevie Y feeling the heat. I didn't do front office people. Maybe I should have. We are going to do coaches on the hot seat here in just a second. Tall John, back on the ticket conversation. I've made the trip up the QE2 for multiple cup runs in 24 and 25, and it's phenomenal. But goalie has been the sticking point prior to the success. I honestly thought they might make an offer to Marc-Andre Fleury for a tryout. That's the other thing, is that it's not like this has just been the last couple of years. This has been an ongoing issue basically since Dwayne Rollison, right? And so there is a reason why all those jackasses from the trial coming back, initially, when everyone heard that Carter Hart had basically a deal in place, everyone's first thought was, oh, well, of course Edmonton, right? But even beyond that, like the John Gibson thing, I don't know how they weren't able to get that done. They came in second in going for Jacob Markstrom. And then obviously Calgary wasn't going to trade him to Edmonton. But they have been aware that this has been a problem for a while, and they just haven't addressed it nearly effectively enough. So it's a big problem in Edmonton. 100%. It is a big problem. Those were the players on the hot seat. But what about the bench bosses? Let's take a look at the 5 coaches who could be coaching for their job in the upcoming NHL season. Every year, the coaching carousel turns in the National Hockey League. And this year, there are 5 that I think could potentially find their way knocked off of that ride. Here are the 5 coaches on the hot seat for the upcoming NHL season. At number 5, starting out with the hottest take of this one, I have Rod Brind'Amour. Now, I want to say, Carolina has had a lot of great success. And Rod Brind'Amour is a very big reason for that. But they have stalled out at the exact same spot multiple years in a row. And it feels like they're getting further and further away every single year from those real upper echelon teams in the NHL. And so this isn't a coaches that need to be fired segment. This is really, it's coaches under the most pressure, but coaches on the hot seat. If Carolina has any form of a speed wobble, I would say before the conference finals, I would not be surprised if Carolina was like, okay, that's it. We have to make a change here. Because this roster has been really good for a while. Offensively, defensively, the goaltending's a bit of a meh, right? Like Freddie Anderson, your mileage may vary, but for the most part, this is a really, really high-level roster that has felt like it has underachieved for the, honestly, better part of like half a decade now, right? Like 5 to 10 years, it feels like. The 10 years part is over-exaggerating, I know. But I still feel like Brind'Amour is an excellent coach. He is a culture setter. He is a tone setter. He is someone who you want running your team. But if you keep having the same problem every single year, then at some point you have to make a change. And I think this year it's going to be very interesting to see with a player like a Nikolai Ehlers, do you open it up offensively a little bit more to allow your team to be a bit more dangerous instead of just the trap defense, lock it down team that they have been. So Brind'Amour, the reason he is on this list is just because it feels like the bar that he has to clear feels the highest of all of the guys on here. Like a few of these are show improvement, make playoffs, whatever. He kind of feels like if they get bounced in 5 in the second round, then we're probably seeing the CJ tweet that Brind'Amour has been let go by the Carolina Hurricanes. So he feels like he has the furthest that he has to go to keep that job title for the upcoming season. So he's at number 5. At number 4 is Andrew Brunette. Last year was the year from hell with Nashville. No one was putting it on the coach, but multiple seasons like that don't tend to be benefited to the same coach, right? So if it is another atrocious season in Nashville, I would suggest that among several other changes, head coach would probably be one of the ones. And look, I think Brunette's a good coach. Again, I think like Brind'Amour's a good coach. I think Brunette's a really solid coach. I think that the big moves that they made didn't really work. It is now on him to make sure he can make everything mesh for this season. So they need to have a good start, I think, for Brunette to be able to hang around. In the chat, Tall John, back on the Carolina thing. Anything less than a cup final is a disappointment for the chance for the Canes. For the chances he has had with that Carolina team. I would agree. Like, they need to at least be playing for a Stanley Cup this year. And that's tough when you have the 2-time defending champions out there. But you look at, like, I think they're a good team, Carolina. But you look at the division they've been able to play in for a long time. It has not been close to, ask Leaf fans, it has not been close to as competitive as the top of the Atlantic that has had Florida, it has had Boston, Tampa Bay, and begrudgingly we will put Toronto in there. When you look at what has been going on in the division with Carolina for the last few years, where the Rangers have fallen off and been a little inconsistent. Washington has found another gear, but they haven't been really playoff dynamos. The Devils are waiting to take a step forward. Like, there hasn't been that real challenge to the throne. So yes, Carolina didn't win the division in the regular season last year, but it wasn't a challenging trek through the postseason, and then they came up against a real challenge and they faltered. So you could, like, people made the case that Tom Brady's greatness was only because he got to play in that division. So you can easily make the case that they have been able to get not a free ride, but a bit of an easier ride into the conference finals than their Atlantic neighbors the last few years, and they haven't been able to do a thing with it. So I would agree. Anything less than a Stanley Cup at this point feels like a disappointment, given the cap space they still have, given the roster they have, and the moves that they made, bringing in Nikolai Ehlers and Stankoven, another year of development. It feels like a a gigantic year in Carolina. I will say that. Number 3 on the list is John Hines out in Minnesota. There's a lot of pressure on the Wild this year. And with Kaprizov's contract, apparently he's turning down mucho dinero with Minnesota. So there is a lot of pressure on the Wild. If there's any sort of a wibbly wobble out there this year, that feels like it could be a desperation move to try to make the kid happy. And again, I think Hines is a fine coach, but I think that team's a problem. And that's going to be a tough one to navigate as a coach because of the distraction that now feels like it is at play with the Kaprizov contract all season long, because it's not like you're signing another one of him in free agency. And I think already the pressure kind of starts because everyone had Brock Besser going there, right? And so when he signs with Vancouver, basically as soon as the puck drops on free agency, I think all of a sudden the heat got really turned up on Minnesota. We have a couple left on the coaches on the hot seat as we get ready for the start of the NHL season. But a reminder that we are streaming these live on multiple different platforms, and the next live stream is going to be Tuesday at 10 a.m. We'll be taping the Tuesday and Wednesday podcast on that day, and then hopefully a video game stream, in the afternoon. Number 2 on the coaches on the hot seat list, it is Lindy Ruff. Yes, only back for a year, but it is beyond unacceptable, in Buffalo, what has happened right now. So they have to make some kind of progress this year, or else it's just not happening for them. It has to take a step forward, and Lindy Ruff is the one at the center of that. You have a team that has focused on defense when drafting for a long time. Now, offensive defensemen, but still, and they gave up some of the most goals in the league last year. And goal scoring, I mean, I feel like they still need some pieces, and I don't think coaching has been the issue in Buffalo this whole time, but he has a bit of an antiquated way of looking at things. And the style that he is supposed to play, they were bad at a season ago. There needs to be some improvement in Buffalo this year, or else it is a full house cleaning again with the Pagulas and the Buffalo Sabres. So Lindy Ruff is number 2 on my list. And at number 1, it is Jim Hiller. Now, maybe there is some recency bias in here, but when you look at how the playoffs went last year, Hiller, I believe, coached his team out of the playoffs with bad challenges, bad lineup management, and just a bad overall strategy in how they attacked some of those games, allowing the Oilers to come back in games and come back in that series. I don't think he's been blessed with the best roster for this upcoming season, but the guys who made that roster are the ones making that decision. There's already been big changes in LA. Jim Hiller didn't exactly, like we said, just shower himself in glory in the playoffs last year. He needs to show that he can be the guy to get this team across the finish line in the Pacific Division, even just into the second round, or else there's going to be a new man at the helm with Los Angeles for this upcoming season. So those are the 5 coaches that I have on the hot seat for this upcoming NHL season. What do you think? Keep the chats coming. Some good stuff in there from Tall John on the Carolina Hurricanes. I would agree, Connor D, like we didn't do general managers here. Steve Yzerman's on the hot seat. There is no question in my mind. He is on the hot seat, and that needs to be a playoff team this year. They've been so close for the last couple of years, but when you see Montreal has passed them, when you see Ottawa has passed them, the time is now for this Detroit team to take that step. And the problem, like, they've drafted really well, right? Like, Seider's awesome. And they have a lot of pieces on offense that you like, but the things that he's supposed to be able to do and be effective at, that he was able to do in Tampa Bay and get that depth and get that organizational depth, he hasn't been able to do. It was the depth forwards in Detroit that kept him out of the playoffs last year. I like the signing of Appleton, but aside from that, they haven't really done a lot to address it. It's just a lot of the same guys, quite overpriced when you look at Comfer and Kopp making around $5 million. They need those guys to step up, and it's looking worse and worse on Stevie Y as the years go on. So I absolutely agree that he is a general manager on the hot seat. But what else? Let me know in the chat, and if you're watching this after, let me know in the comments down below. Tall John, NHL side question. What is your favorite 100th anniversary original 6 jersey? Mine is Detroit. Let me pull them up so I can see. NHL 100th Anniversary. Come on now. There we go. Let's see. I now go original 6. Sorry. I just want to make sure I'm seeing them. I don't want to just be like, oh, it's this one. And miss something entirely obvious here. All right. So the Red Wings, the Red Wings one, like the winged wheel is a classic logo. So obviously there is an affinity to it, right? So, okay, that, whatever. But then anytime they try to do anything else with it, it always sucks. And I feel like this one is maybe the best of what they've been able to do with it, but it's still not great. So it's, I don't know, it's fine. Yeah, it is fine. For Boston, that's just a, like, Boston one. We've seen that one. We've seen them use, like, that version of it a few times, so it doesn't really click with me here. I'm going to try Twitter. Google wasn't really helping me out a whole lot. 100th. And this is great streaming. Sorry about this, guys. Anniversary jerseys. Yeah, like the Boston one, kind of same thing, right? Like Boston, they've gone with these retro ones. This is one of the problems, is that we've had these teams in these, like, Centennial Classic, whatever, Heritage Classic, all these different things. We get just bombarded with these teams all the time. And so because of that, when you do throw out a retro Boston Bruins jersey, it doesn't look different because we've seen various versions of it 100 times before. And so it's just like, okay, whatever. The Montreal Canadiens one, if I'm seeing the right one, kind of that classic little, like, the C and the A instead of the H thing. I feel like I like that one the best, but it's kind of the closest to their regular jersey anyway. But I will go with the Montreal one on that, just to be different. Yeah, Detroit and Boston, just not. We've seen too much of them, right? We've seen these guys in outdoor games 100 times, so we get these jerseys a lot. And it just doesn't feel special to me when you are looking at them now. But keep the NHL stuff coming. We're going to move to different sports, but absolutely keep the NHL stuff coming in the chat, and we can bounce back to it. Let's move now to baseball. And a couple weeks ago, feeling some pressure. The Toronto Blue Jays losing series to the Yankees. Now Bo Bichette out with an injury. What are they going to do? Toronto has now responded, and life is feeling pretty good once again for the Blue Jays, with a lot of excitement coming up later today. The Toronto Blue Jays have rebounded from a couple of tough series with a couple of very, very impressive performances against the Houston Astros and now the Baltimore Orioles, sweeping Baltimore and doing so in emphatic fashion. You get a exciting come-from-behind walk-off win. You get another dramatic victory, and then you get an absolute ass-kicking on Sunday. And now, for Blue Jays fans, this is a player that we have been excited about all season. And for a long time, Trey Yesavage has been viewed as a guy that could potentially fix the Blue Jays, right? He could come in and fix the bullpen problem. They don't really need starting, maybe, I was going to say they don't really need starting pitching help. It's not like 4 and 5 are locked in right now, right? And all we've been doing is seeing this kid dominate at every level that he has reached. And so there's a lot of excitement to see what he is going to look like when the Blue Jays take on the Tampa Bay Rays coming up today. Now, they are easing him in. The Rays are always going to be the Rays, but it's a minor league ballpark. It's not in front of 45,000 fans screaming in Toronto or anything like that. This is a nice soft landing spot for him to make this debut. And it is coming off of a good stretch for the team where it's not like he is coming in to trying to stop the bleeding or anything like that, right? Like, he is coming in, just keep the momentum going, keep the good times rolling, because this team has won, where are we at here? Games in a row wise. Either way, they're coming off of a sweep of the Baltimore Orioles, and they've won 4 games in a row. And once again, feel comfortable at the top of the American League East. So he just has to come in and keep that going. Tall John in the chat, has Kirk turned into the little engine that could and is silently the hero of the Blue Jays season? I would say so. Yeah. I think when you are looking at MVPs of the offense anyway, Springer probably has to be one. Vlad would be two, and then it's Kirk. And so you are talking about like one of the most important players on the Blue Jays. And then when you consider the amount of turnover that has been in that rotation, both starting and in the bullpen, and the amount of guys that he has tried to maximize and had to work his way through, plus the improvements he's made defensively, throwing runners out, he has 100% been a hero for this Blue Jays team. And he's had a couple of those walk-off wins now to get the Blue Jays to where they are at. So he is 100% a hero of the Blue Jays season. You look at where they're at now, coming off of a sweep of the Orioles. That Yankees-Red Sox series couldn't have gone better. Let's not deal with any sweeps here. But the Blue Jays get the sweep. They gain ground on the Yankees. New York had cut the deficit to within 2 of Toronto after that series that they played. Now it's back to 4. And when you're looking at it, the Yankees have played, 149 games? They have 13 left. And they're 4 back of Toronto. It's happened, right? It has happened before. To this franchise, it's happened before. We're going in the Wayback Machine, kids. And I know you can see some grays in this thing. I wasn't there for this. I just heard it a lot because it still scarred my parents for life. When the Blue Jays had a lead going into the last week of the season against the Detroit Tigers and had to win one game in 1987. Tigers sweep them and Detroit goes on to the playoffs and the Blue Jays miss out. So it can still happen. But it does really seem like basically there's probably a more optimistic way of putting this. The Blue Jays are running out of time to screw this up. We are getting to a point where even if this goes catastrophic in the last 2 weeks of the season, they're still going to make it. We have to be just days away from this Blue Jays team clinching a playoff spot. Right now, the Red Sox only have one game lead on the Astros. How they keep track of that is really weird, and it's a weird thing. But right now, the Red Sox are at 82 and 68. They are, 2.5 games up on the Rangers, who are the last team, and the Jays are 5.5 up on them. So let's do the math. That's 8 games up on a playoff spot with 13 games to go. So we could see something this week where Toronto clinches a playoff spot. So that's but the division still at play. But still, with 4 games to go, again, the Blue Jays are at 87 and 62. So that is, 13 games remaining. If they go 7 and 6, the Yankees have to go 12 and 1 to catch Toronto, if my math is right. I think it is. But the Yankees would have to, and they have to pass the Jays, because the Jays have the season series, I think. So the Jays are in a spot where if they just play fine for the next couple of weeks, they are going to win the division, and they are probably going to get that first round bye into the next round. They have a 4.5 game lead on Seattle, who is the first division leader into the wild card round. So it's just all these different things where it has kind of felt like, I don't want to get too far. I know we've talked about who's going to start division rounds and stuff like that, but there has always been this thing in the back of my head that, like, this could fall apart. It still could go very badly. Even if it does now, they're making the playoffs. Real good chance they're still winning the division. It has been a miraculous season for the Blue Jays. And now it does feel like it's going to get punctuated with a division championship and a spot in the American League Division Series. It's just now, what role does Yesavage play in all of this? I heard they're petitioning to try to get him eligible for the playoff roster. So we will see what comes of that. That would be quite the thing. But very interested to see what this kid looks like tonight for the Blue Jays as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays. But feeling good after an excellent weekend, really put the nerves at ease around the Blue Jays. Tall John, once again, in the chat. 45-plus comeback wins. The upside is the Blue Jays are never out until the third out. That is very fair. I have loved how this team has battled and competed all season long. And again, like to your point earlier, Tall John, it's not just Bo and Vlad and Springer, but it's Kirk coming up with some of those big hits. Tyler Heineman driving in Miles Straw to win a game in walk-off fashion after an amazing play from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? Like, it is Dalton Varsho coming up with big plays. Ernie Clement coming up with big plays. Big, not enough recently, but big games out of the bullpen from guys who you wouldn't expect, right? And getting the absolute, pardon the pun, max out of Scherzer this season. It hasn't just been one thing all year. It has been a series of them that has been able to get them to where they're at. And again, I do have concerns about that comeback against the Orioles the other day, where it's a series of singles that get through and then a sac fly wins it. I worry about being able to do that against the not Baltimores in the playoffs, but you can only play who you play. And they have played good teams really well. I know they lost a series to the Yankees, but before that, they have dominated New York. They had a very good series against the Houston Astros. Against the Cubs, they looked well. Against the Tigers, it's been kind of hit or miss, but they've looked pretty well. They've had good series against the Mariners. Like, they have had good moments against very good teams all season long. So, at some point, I kind of just got to start believing that they're a good team. Also, Anthony Santander hitting a home run in AAA over the weekend has to feel pretty good about things as well. So, a lot of optimism for the Blue Jays going into a start of the week series with the Tampa Bay Rays. If you want to keep the Blue Jays chat going, you can do so if you're watching after in the comments or in the chat there. Also, if you want to help out, Couch Potato Diary, I know times are tough, but we do have a tip jar. It is linked in every video and every podcast, plus on Twitch and Kick in panel form. So you can go there and support Couch Potato Diary and the treat habits of my cats as well. But again, it is not required, certainly not expected, but would greatly be appreciated. Let's move to the CFL, as the Saskatchewan Roughriders were free and clear in the West Division, and now all of a sudden it's white knuckle time again for one of the CFL's most popular teams. So, what happened with the Riders in Week 15? Let's talk about it in this CFL recap. The CFL season continues to wind down, and with that, I kind of thought that maybe some of the stress around the Riders would as well. After a sweep of Winnipeg, slip up by the Calgary Stampeders, all of a sudden, things feeling confident for Saskatchewan. And then last week happened, and now once again, it is a sprint to the finish. This game for the Riders, as they lose by double digits to Montreal, is a very weird one to analyze. I gave my thoughts on it on 3 Down Nation, my Rider thoughts following the loss for the team. But the main, the problem was obvious, and it's incredibly fixable, is that you had 2 kids on the corner, 2 inexperienced players on the corner, who got beat by one of the best, maybe the best receiver in the Canadian Football League. Like this isn't a loss where it's like, okay, there's a grand problem here for Saskatchewan in the same way that you would have it after the 2 Calgary losses, right? Like, you see the amount of points that Philpott put up from McLeod Bethel Thompson at quarterback. And okay, there's problems here. But the Calgary one, it was dominance on the lines that really kind of controlled that game and did so in a way that you think, like, how is Saskatchewan going to deal with this? How Saskatchewan deals with this one is easy. Get your cornerbacks healthy, and you'll be maybe not fine, but you'll be all right. The defensive line couldn't get to McLeod Bethel Thompson in time. There were problems, right? It wasn't just the 2 kids on the island. The comparison I used on the Riders' thoughts is, it's not like this team was the Death Star and it is 99.9% invincible, but there's this little hole that if Luke Skywalker shoots it into, the whole thing explodes. And those kids were that, right? It wasn't that. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They couldn't stop the run, but all of that was highlighted because they were having trouble in the secondary. And I do think part of it is the pass rush didn't have time to get to the quarterback because Philpott was so bleeding open all game long that it was just, okay, pass, guys open. All right, so let's back some things up, help out the inexperienced guys in the secondary. Oh, sweet, rushing lanes. Best running day of the season for the Alouettes. It did kind of feel like that was the domino to make that all fall. So, on the one hand, they got beat up. They got beat up really bad. But this also isn't a game that you think, okay, this is a gigantic problem. Because it's not. The pass rush doesn't all of a sudden suck. they all of a sudden aren't going to be able to not stop the run. Although I do think the run defense is a touch overrated. But they're not going to all of a sudden be the worst team in the league against the run. And I'm going to suggest that's the worst their secondary is going to play. They also couldn't do jack shit on offense for a lot of this game, and they still were able to put up over 30 points, some of it in garbage time. But this is still a really good football team, and it is still one that, like they said, controls their destiny to host in the West Final. But it now gets a little bit tighter because they have the bye now. Calgary plays 2 games by the time Saskatchewan plays in Edmonton on Saturday night. By the time they snap the ball in Edmonton, the next snap the Riders play, odds are they will be doing it as a team that is tied for first place in the West Division. With Calgary getting, it's not the easiest schedule. BC and Montreal, those are 2 tricky teams. But Calgary's going to be favored in both, barring injury. So odds are Saskatchewan has lost all margin for error now and are probably going to have to win out if they want to host the West Final in early November to be able to book their ticket to the Grey Cup out in Winnipeg. So it's not one where there's a lot actionable out of it. It is not one where I think the Riders are screwed or anything like that, but it is a game that does kind of take away a lot of the good feelings that you had about this team, and now you just have to stew with it for a couple of weeks. The one other thing I would say, you could see one team was more desperate than the other. And then in the comments, Trevor Harris, like, we control our own destiny. And I didn't want him to go to the press conference and just like come storming in, like just, oh boy, we're screwed. Oh my God, we are just like the scene from Entourage. Like, pardon the language, kids. We'll put the explicit thing on this one. But like, we are so fucking fucked. You have no idea. Like the in this life, there's no such thing as moral victories. There's just scoreboards. And right now, our scoreboard reads fucked. Like, I wasn't expecting him to come out and say that. But you could see with we control our narrative, we control our destiny, everything is fine. That is the appropriate leadership style, and certainly the one that you would expect from Trevor Harris. But it also did kind of look like the way the Riders played, where they knew we can lose one and we'll still be okay. And we're going to lose the one where we don't have either of our corners playing. And okay, shit, you know? So I don't think that this is a game that is indicative of anything for the Riders other than you've used your one now, right? Spider-Man, everybody gets one. You've used that one. Now they have to really start to pick it up here in the final weeks of the CFL season. On the other side, Montreal's a scary team. Like, credit the Alouettes for being able to take advantage of that and really just spamming that all game long. But when Philpott is healthy, he's the best receiver in the Canadian Football League. I don't think there's a question about that. This doesn't feel super hot takey. These are the agreed upon facts of the case. He is just that. And so getting him back, and like McLeod Bethel-Thompson, I don't think he is a every week starting quarterback for a playoff team in the CFL, but he is a dude who's smart enough to see that, oh, hey, that guy hasn't done anything in this league. Best receiver in the league, let's get it to him a bunch and give him the biggest game he's had. He's good enough to do that. And they are, at some point, you would presume, getting Davis Alexander back. So while Montreal has found their way to the back part of many a power ranking, let's not just whistle past the graveyard with this team and think that they are completely out of it or anything like that. This is a really good football team that has been decimated by injuries and now feels like they're getting healthier at the right time. The opposite end of that is Winnipeg, as they kind of got beat up by the Toronto Argonauts, who are still just going out and getting it done on the football field and still able to kind of put some of the distractions behind them. Sorry, Bombers didn't lose to Toronto. I'm combining 2 different ones. Apologies. On the Bombers thought, sorry. The Bombers, it's really limited when Strevler comes in at quarterback. And like having him as your quarterback sneak option and as the official vibes king of the Canadian Football League and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, great, fantastic. Little bit of nostalgia from their championship wins. All of that, excellent. But you need your backup quarterback to be able to come in and be trusted to throw down the field more than once in a game. And they obviously didn't trust him to do that. There obviously just wasn't that in the offense. And that obviously isn't going to work now. And we will see. We've talked about the health of Zach Collaros before. I don't think I'm willing to roll the dice on the 8-game parlay between now and the Grey Cup that's going to be a dude that's going to be able to play every single game for them. And when you look at like Edmonton, we talked about the Argos just getting it done. Edmonton looked like they were going to win that game for a bit of it. The BC Lions are right there. And that crossover is not guaranteed because of the other team that won that game against Edmonton, Toronto, who I thought won here. But you know what I mean? This is far from a done deal for Winnipeg now. So this is getting very concerning very quickly for the Blue Bombers. On the Toronto side, a win over the Edmonton Elks, another kind of crazy last second one, but one where they're just still finding ways to win. And I think you have to credit the coach that they have. Ryan Dinwiddie is doing an excellent job now. They have figured it out with Arbuckle and the rest of this team. It does pose some issues with Chad Kelly. The next time there is a wobble in Toronto, what do they do? But they are making this very interesting in the CFL's East Division right now and causing a bit of that chaos into the West as well. So that is the CFL story for the week. Again, we're going to have CFL content on Couch Potato Diary throughout the week, but also check out my stuff only once this week with 3 Down with the best bets of the week. That'll be coming out later on from me on 3 Down. All right, time to move over to the world of professional wrestling. And we have talked for a while about how it is becoming almost comical, the amount that WWE is counter-programming everything that is going on with AEW. But this time, it seems like they have figured it out, as WWE isn't just running counterculture to AEW right now, they are steamrolling them into this weekend with WrestlePalooza. Let's take a look ahead to this Saturday from World Wrestling Entertainment. WWE presents WrestlePalooza, an absolutely long planned out, not thrown together for AEW all-out purposes or anything like that, on ESPN, a deal that was supposed to start in January, but you know what? We're just feeling like we're in a given mood. Let's start it in September. Maybe not, but still, this is the problem. God, I feel like such a hypocrite because I think it's insane that they're counter-programming AEW right now. AEW has their own issues. AEW has kind of been getting in AEW's way without you causing the problems. Now you kind of just seem like the assholes. But it's also working, you know? And we talk about, like, Brock Lesnar. Didn't need him back. Hate that he is back. Still hate that he is back. But there's no question he adds star power to this. And having Brock Lesnar against John Cena at the top of a card makes it feel like a big deal, you know? And then WWE announces this weekend that they are taking WrestleMania to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 2027. And that feels gross for a number of reasons that we have discussed here previously. And all the talk of sellouts and this, that, and the other thing. But still, it feels like the bigger deal. And they are on a roll. And aside from that asshole at the top of the card, this still feels like a show that I'm very excited for. So, again, I wish there was more of a moral high ground I could stand on in that this will not do and blah, 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 blah. They're still the number one wrestling promotion in the world, and they are really still clicking, even if you disagree with a lot of the decisions that they make. And so I kind of hate myself for all of it. But here we are. That's the emotion we want with this one. When you look at right now, this card is stacked, right? Like even the Brock Lesnar thing, I can't stand that he is back. I don't think he is necessary. Again, though, you cannot argue his star power. But even if you just chop that one off the Wikipedia page, still, AJ Lee and CM Punk against Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, they have hit it out of the park on this build so far. I can't wait to see what we get on Monday. And they have absolutely killed this one. We get a Usos reunion as they go into a bit of a dream match with a couple up-and-coming stars in Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. And we get a dream match in the women's division with Io Sky against Stephanie Vaquer. So, like, this is a massive, massive card and just a fantastically put together show from the WWE. And you know they're going to go all out. It is the debut on ESPN. So I am very curious to see the types of bells and whistles that we get on this program, similar to the ones that we were expecting on Netflix and everything like that. So I'm interested to see just what it looks like, what it feels like, how everything is going. And then what type of a big moment we get on this show. Because I am assuming we're going to get some type of a big moment to exit the show with. I just don't know what that's going to be. So I'm very interested to see what they are doing. And talking about it before, about how it felt like when they started this, I do think that they were kind of getting in their own way creatively when they were doing the counter programming to start, right? Like it was, we're going to put a Saturday Night's Main Event on at the same time as an AEW show. And then AEW moves it. Oh, okay, well, we're going to put NXT on. And now NXT has absolutely been cannon fodder in this. They have been torched with a number of different things that they are being called upon to do. But we have also seen, like, the Evolution show gets thrown in to just kind of round out a weekend and a number of different counter-programming things. But now that they have kind of established that this is the direction they're going, instead of just, fuck it, this thing, let's go. Now that they have actually settled into this is what we are doing, it has allowed them to get a creative timeline, and it does feel like they are rolling. And it does kind of feel like it's working. And I hate it, but it feels like it's working. There is, and we'll talk about it in a second, there is no buzz for AEW this weekend. Like, zilch, nada, none around AEW. And so they've taken all of that away. And it feels like now creatively, because before, we got CM Punk and Gunther get to cut 2 promos, and that's it. For SummerSlam. Like, that felt rushed. This doesn't. This feels like Punk and AJ together against Becky and Seth, that has been established very, very effectively. Stephanie Vaquer and Io, we've almost waited too long to get. Drew against Cody. Didn't even mention that. Drew against Cody. They set that up really well a while ago. And Brock Cena, they set that one up a while ago. They have now kind of mastered the storytelling arcs of a lot of these and built them up into a really effective way for this, where it's not all just thrown together and we're not just doing a bunch of shows just to do a bunch of shows because the other guys are doing a bunch of shows. This now feels like they have really hit their stride for these ones. The one issue I have with it creatively is it feels like there has been so much of the focus on like the star power of everything that I think it has significantly hindered what's been going on in the mid-card. Like, there's nothing happening mid-card wise on SmackDown right now. And the Raw one is feeling very, like, if you're not part of the Vision story, and if you're not in the, like, kind of Io, Rhea orbit, it doesn't feel like there's a lot for you right now. Even with Penta and the New Day and all of that, like, that feels very pushed down and very kind of afterthoughty right now. So they have, I think they have done some damage to the mid-card, where it felt like a strength of this company a little bit ago. It now feels like it is kind of a secondary, if not tertiary thing right now with them. But overall, like, aside from the obvious, how can you not be excited about what we could see WrestlePalooza-wise this weekend? And I have no doubt that WWE is going to go very WWE in looking for a big moment coming out of Saturday's WrestlePalooza. A reminder that for wrestling fans, like, we are 2 hours and 14 minutes into the stream here today. And I understand not every wrestling fan wants to sit through 2 hours of football talk before they get to their wrestling. So we've created Living Room Lariats. It is the wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary, where all the wrestling content is going to live. You still get it on Couch Potato Diary, but if you just want the wrestling, it comes to you with Living Room Lariats, plus some bonus stuff you're not going to get on Couch Potato as well. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. A couple notes here from Tall John in the chat. The 4 major WWE events should be in Canada or the US. It's North America that made WWE what it is. It is great that they can go overseas with the PLE, but the Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series should be in Canada. It allows for their core fan base to make the major event with a little financial hardship of the long flight. And then R-Truth and Ron Cena is always a spotlight, good or bad, LOL. Yes, no, that's... but look, I mean, we talked about it before, just to kind of put a bow on that kind of thought. That was one, right, where we're doing the counter-programming thing. Okay, let's just give this a couple weeks, and now, oh, people really like R-Truth, so now let's give it a couple more weeks. But now it's kind of an afterthought, right? So that was another part where WWE was just throwing a bunch of stuff to try to counter-program AEW, and it felt like it kind of hindered the John Cena thing and the R-Truth story a little bit, where there was a little bit more meat on that bone, but we had to hit X, Y, and Z for this, and it just wasn't going to work. So that's one that felt like, well, it's always a spotlight, like you said. It never did really feel like it reached its full potential. On the where should the big shows thing be, for the most part, I would agree that having the big four be kind of North America bound, I do think makes a lot of sense. Obviously, like 92 SummerSlam in England is always going to be kind of a gold standard for an international event. And I do think it is easier now than ever to do a show internationally, right? Like the time's never really going to add up to do one in Japan, but if you like the Paris shows, we've all been able to watch it fine. And I've kind of loved when they go overseas and all of a sudden Raw's at noon. Love that. Absolutely love that. And so I do think that if you wanted to do one of them in a place a year, I think that does make sense. It's just the obvious with Saudi Arabia, with all of the concerns about the human rights violations that are happening there and everything that goes along with it. But like for the most part, I agree. Like this is a North American company. And it is one where that is the majority of your base. But I do think expanding that a bit, if you wanted to have one of them be international a year, I think that makes actually a lot of sense in my opinion. The European fans are awesome to listen to, but that's just part of their culture too. Oh, they got the chance down. Like North America, I shouldn't lump in Mexico here, but the States specifically, they steal a lot of the chance and they kind of make them worse every time. So it's good to go back to Europe and just kind of get the refresh. Oh, right, this is what it's supposed to sound like, and go with them there. And I do think you've established that you have a rabid fan base out there. So I think that they have showed that they can probably expand beyond what they have been doing in those venues. But I do think that that's going to have to be with a bigger show, like a SummerSlam or a Survivor Series or SummerSlam or something along those lines. The one thing that's in the back of my mind here with WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia is WWE now is very focused on site fees, right? Like that. It's why John Cena's final match is happening in Washington, D.C. Like, come on, what are we doing? That had to be in Boston. That was the easiest layup ever, is that happening in Boston. But Boston couldn't pay enough. So now John Cena's last match in Boston is happening in November, I believe. So WWE is focused on that. And I feel like this could be setting a standard that not many other places can reach, right? With WrestleMania, they already pulled it out of New Orleans to go to Vegas for this upcoming year because they are based in Vegas, and Vegas is probably paying a pretty penny to get that. And so now, I sure as hell don't think New Orleans can compete with whatever the Saudis are going to pay for WrestleMania, right? So I think that there is a world where WrestleMania almost becomes exclusive to either Saudi Arabia or Vegas, because Vegas is the home base for TKO, and casinos and everything out there and hotels are going to pay a lot for WWE to come in at what is a relative downtime in Las Vegas, although everything in Vegas right now is at a downtime for reasons. But those are two places that can pay a lot to bring WrestleMania in. And so I have a real worry that it's going to basically just bounce between a couple places because no one else is going to be able to afford what those places can do. And we've already seen that's a real focus of WWE. It's not just going to be, well, we want to bring the experience of WrestleMania to wherever, right? They're not going to be able to justify it in their minds. They're not going to be able to justify turning down whatever the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going to offer them just to be able to bring it to name a place. The ballpark in, I'm blanking on what they call it now. The ballpark in Seattle, right? Or the Rogers Center or Rogers Stadium, the weird concert thingy that they've set up there now. Or Vancouver, right? Like, it is going to be very difficult for all these places to reach that bar that all of these countries, or that Saudi Arabia now specifically, is going to set. And given how WWE and TKO operate, it's going to be really tough for TKO to turn that down as well. So I think this is going to be a much more regular occurrence now than I think anyone really realizes WWE going to Saudi Arabia for not just Crown Jewel or anything like that, but for these big time events. So that's the story with the WWE. And just to kind of show you the differences in the buzz around these shows, that WWE talk was around 10 minutes. I don't think we're getting that with AEW, but it's still supposed to be one of the bigger shows of the year. AEW All Out in Toronto. There's not a whole lot of buzz for it, but when it comes, it's still going to be a big show. Probably. Let's talk AEW. AEW presents All Out in Toronto. They are all out of the time slot that they initially had planned for because WWE came in with Brock Lesnar and suplexed them back into the middle part of the day. But still, AEW trying to make that move to 2 o'clock so that they get a little bit more buzz. It's not working. No one's talking about this show. There is zero buzz around this. We talk about before WWE kind of getting in their own way, sacrificing NXT for a lot of different counter programming stuff. There's no question it's worked because no one's talking about this show. And I get it's Monday and Raw just kind of dominates the talk always in the wrestling space on a Monday, especially a Raw in a go-home capacity. But you are now building up to a show on ESPN featuring multitudes of the biggest stars that this company has to offer. Like every of the biggest star that this company has to offer, with the exception of Rhea Ripley, is going to be on this show. They are absolutely bringing everything they have. And they are hitting AEW at a time where they can't offer that star power. Now, no one on AEW has ever been able to offer the star power of a John Cena or a Brock Lesnar. And ironically, I will throw WWE Cody Rhodes in there. But a couple of the ones who could come close, Kenny Omega, not there. Will Ospreay, not there for a while. And honorable mention to Swerve Strickland, not there. So you are going up against a juggernaut in WWE that is bringing all of its tanks, and your 3 biggest missiles aren't there to be shot right now. So they are hurting for attention at this point. And I do think you combine it with some shows that looked less than at the ECW arena, and it has combined for a bit of a lackluster type of a feel to this particular show. But how many times have we said that in AEW, and then we get one of the pay-per-views of the year? Now, match quality-wise, this one's going to have a lot to live up to in that way. But Hangman Adam Page against Kyle Fletcher should be amazing. And so you look at this card, there's a lot of really strong matches on this show. Whatever we get out of the Okada Unified Championship match should be awesome, right? And Rio against Mercedes Moné is going to be a lot of fun. Like this, you are going to get a lot of very good wrestling on this show. And I think AEW's best chance in this Wrestle War of September 20th, 2025 is they're going first, and they're probably going to go best. WWE is going to rely on star power because that's what they have. AEW has to put on one of the best wrestling matches and best wrestling shows to keep up with that. So they are banking on giving you fast-paced, intense, and quite frankly, hardcore wrestling. And they are banking on kind of wearing you out before you move over to ESPN. But odds are a lot of people are just going to watch this on some kind of a stream after and just watch the WWE one live when they can. That would be my guess for how a lot of people are going to consume this. But again, this looks like it's going to be an amazing card when you look at the match quality. A couple issues I have. I said in the last few weeks, and I know, again, you can see the grays in my beard. I know I'm sounding like old man yelling at cloud. I need a break from AEW hardcore stuff. You know, like we have at Forbidden Door, we have all the guys in a steel cage and we're getting just wild violence in all these different spots. And it's incredible. But I have a difficult time naming a few of them that we saw. And then you have, before that, a Texas death match on television where Kyle Fletcher is stabbing through the leg of Dustin Rhodes and they're bleeding all over the place. And it's an incredible match, which is great. But it's also a Texas death match 2 weeks earlier at the biggest show of the year. And you're having all of these things. And oh my goodness, it's this wild, incredible thing. But then there was also the Anarchy in the Arena from, like, it's just, at some point it loses its specialness. And I understand if you are looking at the old Eric Bischoff model of greater than, less than, different than, you can either greater than or different than, whatever category you want, you can do that hardcore wise on WWE. We saw the Donnybrook match that they had in Paris with Sheamus and Rusev. That looks a little bit different than the hardcore matches that we expect from AEW, right? Like they can out hardcore WWE. The problem is they go to that well a lot, and it is losing its specialness. It's losing its effect. And so we're getting tables and tacks on Saturday with MJF against Mark Briscoe, and we're getting a coffin match with Moxley and with Darby Allin. And I am sure there are going to be some unbelievable spots in that, but it's going to blend in with what we saw in the cage match last month and what we saw at the Texas Death Match 2 weeks before that. And whatever that was with the bit different, but with the staple gun and the electrocuted fly swatter with Tony Storm and Sky Blue before that. And before that, it was the Texas Death Match at All In. This company goes to this well a lot, and they are good at it, and they have a lot of people who can do a lot of crazy things with it. And maybe they have some of the best doing it on Saturday, but when you do it all the time, it loses its impact. It loses the oh my gosh factor of it all. Or you have to keep one-upping yourselves, and it gets very dangerous, and now you're in a spot where, not necessarily because of this, but 3 of your top stars are already out with injury. We can't afford any more. So AEW has found a lane that they can differentiate themselves from WWE, but it's already starting to feel very much the same anyway. And so that's becoming a bit of a problem, I guess, for AEW moving forward. So that is kind of the look ahead at AEW All Out. One more thought before we put a close on this today. The whole discussion of counter-programming and what WWE is doing to AEW right now. I do think that there might be a counter that AEW can come at them with. I just don't know if contractually they're able to or if logistically they're able to. Let's talk about it. So, WWE is counter-programming AEW. That is now not just a one-time thing or a two-time thing. That feels like a business strategy from WWE. So how can AEW counter it? And just talking about it in the all-out look ahead, referenced the Eric Bischoff thing, where when he was making Nitro, he took a legal pad and put all the lines, and was greater than, less than, different than. Where can I kind of fit Nitro in? And obviously, he found a lot of the right stuff, and for 83 weeks it went really, really well, and then rather famously didn't. But still, I think that's a good way of kind of looking at things from an AEW standpoint. And one of the things we talked about in either greater than or different than is the hardcore wrestling aspect of it, right? But what else? Where else can AEW fit in there on? So what are some of the frustrations that fans have with WWE at this time? And I think seeing it and seeing SmackDown a couple weeks ago, where the first hour was John Cena and Sami Zayn, and then the last 20 minutes was AJ and Punk and Becky and Seth. All very effective, all very good segments. I'm not taking anything away from the segments, but the matches in WWE have become very much secondary. And all of that has just kind of faded away in WWE. And they still have people who can put amazing matches on, don't get me wrong. But for AEW, I think one of the ways they can be different than, and maybe even better than, is the television product now. I think being on pay-per-view is a real detriment at this point. I get it is a source of income that they have, and HBO Max wasn't really shilling out to just get the streaming rights for it. But now I can get WWE's PLEs, in Canada anyway, on Netflix, no additional cost. Just I had Netflix already, and now, hey, look at that. Survivor Series is there. But then I have to spend $50 on AEW programming. And it's like, man, this doesn't feel great. This feels fiscally irresponsible that I'm spending money on wrestling. That's very 10 years ago of me. And now I'm doing it 12 times. And with WWE, they're able to just put these shows on wherever and whenever. But the one spot they're really not is Wednesday. And so I wonder if now the pivot for AEW to get away from looking at how WWE is counter-programming them with all of these different things, specifically now, if it's going to be from the main roster. The way they can do that is make the TV show must see again. And so I do think the way AEW had it before, with the 4 shows that were pillars, with the 4 pay-per-views throughout the year, and then have monthly big-time specials on Wednesdays, that feels like maybe the best way to counter this right now. And look, WWE will try. There will be some kind of an excuse that NXT has to pop up on a Wednesday. Or maybe TNA will get their TV deal on a Wednesday. And maybe it's in a package with AAA or Noah or something like that, right? Like, there will be something that WWE will do to attack Wednesdays. Soon, I am sure of it. But for now, they're never going to do a main roster show on a Wednesday. That's just not going to be a thing that they do. So that feels like your window to try to attack this thing. And I feel like building up to these pay-per-views, you could still do it, but just put them on free TV. Put them on TBS and Max and TNT. I think the pay-per-view model is hurting this company right now. And it is just allowing them to basically just get bombarded by WWE and UFC if WWE really felt hot and or boxing or PBR or whatever. Like, they are able to really attack them on those days. And I just think if they could get back to where they were before, where instead of it's an all-star 8-man tag and we're going to get awesome wrestling on these shows, but it's only going to be really built up for a week and maybe storyline it's not going to mean a whole lot. If you can build up to what feel like special shows on Wednesdays, then I do think you're able to get that night back, get a bit of that momentum going, and maybe it does back WWE off a little bit, or maybe they do go out of their way to put themselves on a Wednesday with an NXT or something, but you can kind of start to control that narrative again and make them be reactionary to you instead of right now they're just dominating. So that there's just something I was thinking about is that they can... The free TV stuff that we are able to get from WWE right now, it's all there. And so I get like different than is pay-per-view on Saturday, but that's not better. I think where they can be something that can really stand out is make your TV show feel like it's a big deal again. Because WWE, like, you're getting some big moments. For sure you're getting big moments. But from a wrestling standpoint, we're not getting those blow-away things on television anymore. Everything's building up to the shows. And everything's kind of building up to just the big shows, right? So you have an opportunity, I think, to make your regular TV again stand out from what the competition is doing at this particular time. Just a thought on AEW there. Tall John in the chat. The upside of having repeat cities for WWE like Vegas, easier for both WWE logistics and easier for fans to plan for and easier for cities to plan for visitors. That's fair. Is that you know once a year we're getting the this, that, and the other thing. The one thing I would say is like I think a lot of people who went to Vegas this year for WrestleMania, probably good. You know, like I think part of it is you get to go to a new city every year to see like, okay, 1 year we're in Dallas. Now we're going to Vegas. Yeah, let's go to Vegas. Let's see the different stuff. Now, Vegas has a lot of different things to offer. You can do Vegas a few different ways, but I do think you run into a bit of that sameness for sure, but it does like logistically for WWE, it makes a ton of sense because their main offices are there. I'm sure NXT is moving there soon. It makes sense to just have it all there as a hub. And it's not like you're going to run out of hotel space there or anything like that. And there are ways they could be creative about it to make it more user-friendly, I guess, for people going. But I do think you run into a bit of the sameness when it's in the same spot for people who are traveling a couple years in a row. Mariana Lopez, 272 on Kick saying, yo, you seem angry. I'm not angry. I get very serious when I talk sometimes. But no, I'm in a very good mood right now because we've gone for over 2.5 hours. And now we're going to stop. That's going to do it for the show today, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out, whether you've been here for the whole thing or just a couple of segments here. Again, we're going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. doing the sports talk thing. A couple Monday night games in the NFL, a big Blue Jays debut in the CFL, plus some more NHL and Blue Jays and CFL and wrestling to talk about. So, as always, check out Sea of Dead 403.ca. We got shirts helping out Kids Sport right now. It's not just for a great cause. They look awesome for heading down to the Dome. So as we get ready for the start of the season. So check those out now. All of it goes toward Kid Sport and some great stuff as well. And if you want one of these hats, you got to let us know in getting a notification when they come back in stock. It helps us see what people want. And so we're going to keep those rolling now as well. Also, head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Not only great fuel. Remember back in the early days of energy drinks? Where it's like, okay, this is going to wake me up, but oh boy, this just tastes awful. That's not this with Swift Energy. They got some great flavors there to help you get through your next gaming session or just get through your next live stream with me as we keep rolling here. And maybe I'll be less angry when we're back with you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. So follow me on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein. If you're listening, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. If you are watching, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and let me know what you thought of the show. And I will talk to all of you again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.